Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lukas Wacker. With me, as always, we have Cushman. And welcome to the first preview of 2021. Racing is back within a matter of hours when we're recording this. The Rolex 24 just mere hours away. We've got the Rolex 24 this upcoming weekend. 24 hours at Daytona International Speedway. What a great way to get us kicked off into the motorsports calendar. Super pumped to watch it as much as I can. I mean, 24 hours straight is going to be a lot, but we'll see what we can pick up as we go along through the race. But we've got some news and notes to get to in this episode before we preview that big event. So before we get into all that, how are you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good, yes. Very excited for this Rolex 24. Been looking forward to this for a while, and it's kind of that first big name event of the year because you look at the amount of names involved. It's the season opener for IMSA, so very excited for this because we've been following these storylines for a long time, whether it's Kevin Magnussen when he was leaving Formula One to join Chip Ganassi's effort in IMSA. Well, that begins this weekend, whether it's Chase Elliott and Jimmy Johnson going for the DPI glory in IMSA and to begin here at the Rolex 24. That begins this weekend. So all these kind of storylines that we've been following for these last few months, we begin to see those start to come to fruition this weekend. So I'm very excited for what we got coming up here.
Yeah, we'll be talking about the big names, the guys that you might recognize from what we talked about on the show and the ones that we've recognized over our years of watching motorsports. We'll look at those and what we can expect from those teams later on in the episode. But before we get into that, we've got some news and notes to get to. And we'll start off.
A decent amount of it, too.
Surprisingly, actually, we can get into first on the esports side of things. I know some professors will be very happy that we're starting off the show with that, with Ryerson, but we've got NASCAR and iRacing joining once again for the Pro Invitational. Obviously, we saw this over this past season when NASCAR was on its hiatus from the pandemic. They did a very smart marketing opportunity here with iRacing. They made a great effort broadcasting NASCAR and iRacing together, had the big cup superstars racing as one on the Sundays in replacement for the races that they were missing. So a great strategy play there for iRacing. It worked out magnificently, the most watched esport event on television. It was just massive amounts of attention worldwide, really. And we're very happy that it's going to be back this season on Wednesday nights this time around for 10 races. We've got 5 races right now on the main network of FS1. And then we're still waiting on a couple of tracks to be announced as the season rolls along, but I'm sure NBC will pick up the later half once their broadcasting comes into it as the season rolls along when they take over for the viewing and for the television network. So the first 5 races on FS1, we've got on March 24th, the Bristol Dirt. It's going to be coming onto iRacing now, so they're going to have to get that all scanned in and for the drivers to kind of get a little bit of a preliminary taste of what to expect on the newly finished Bristol Dirt. Yeah, that's great. We're going to get 2 doses of the Bristol Dirt. They couldn't have given us the Bristol normal race just to compensate for the decision. But nonetheless, after that, we've got April 21st at Talladega, May 5th at Darlington, May 19th at COTA, and then the June 2nd date for FS1 is to be announced. So we'll see what they decide to put for that race. But very interesting. I'm happy with the races that they've chosen. A super speedway track, a Darlington race that is going to be really fun to watch. COTA as well, making its debut here with NASCAR kind of as a preliminary basis here. We'll get a little bit of a taste of maybe what to expect when the real life cars go on track. And then the Bristol Dirt, it is what it is on that front. But what do you make of the decision to bring back the Pro Invitational this year, Kyle?
Well, we knew that it was going to be coming. We just didn't know what it would exactly be. And I think they found a nice happy medium for what it is here and having it on the Wednesday nights because we're not going to have any of the midweek stuff over the course of the season. We saw them try it last year with needing to make up races. Didn't really work in the grand scheme of things when you look at the amount of viewership for those races. So you split the difference and you have Wednesday night content, but have it as the iRacing series. And I think that makes a lot of sense leading into race weekends and everything. And yeah, hopefully they can get some more celebrity interest, I guess you could say, in getting other racers involved, whether that be from different series or esports people or whatever it is. Get some other faces involved, not just strictly names from the sport, because it gets a bit redundant in that regard. But it's going to be great to see names like Timmy Hill up at the front again in this, Garrett Smithley, all those kind of guys. Yeah, and so those will be fun to see again. But I like the announcement here. They picked some good tracks for starters. Bristol Dirt, we have no clue what the hell it's going to be like, but you get Talladega, which is always a fun track to run on iRacing. You get Darlington, which is really fun. You get Coda as well, so you get some fun tracks there, which should result in some fun stuff on some Wednesday nights.
Yeah, I'm in esports right now for university, so this is definitely going to be something I'll probably write a paper about. Why not? You got to take advantage of the resources that we've got at our hands, and this seems to be a pretty solid one here. I'm very excited to have iRacing kind of in an integral part of the sport moving forward. Here we've got the Coca-Cola eNASCAR series that we've seen for the past couple of seasons, and it's been a truly great success. We've had the Cup Superstars make esports teams, and now they've got their sponsors down there. It's just a great marketing ploy across the board for everybody involved, and it's done extremely well. So we're happy to see it back this upcoming season. We'll see how the results pan out. If we see Denny Hamlin come back and destroy the field once again, Dale Earnhardt Jr., I'm sure will make an appearance or two.
Definitely.
We'll keep you up to date on as it becomes closer to those events. Obviously, we'll focus on the main on-track real-life product, but we'll touch on this as well as the races unfold. So
yeah, well, if it happens on the Wednesday night, we'll get to talk about it on the Thursdays a little bit. So it works out well for us.
Yeah, we've got we're gonna have so much news, man. It's gonna be unbelievable.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be nuts.
It does not really change from last year. I don't think it's gonna be pretty much an intense.
We're gonna have to pick and choose some stuff even. There's gonna be a lot.
We're going to have to be nitpicky a little bit more this year with what we wanted to talk about. But when they're in the preseason party here, we can talk about whatever we want, really. So we'll move on here to some Cup Series news. One that we've talked about kind of frequently on this show over the past month or so, Ryan Preece being the main topic of discussion with that 37 car. Brad Doherty was available for the media. Bob Procris has been tweeting out some updates on that 37 car situation. And there is, as per the speculation, a lack of funding for that car, hence the open car kind of trait that they have on that car this season. They don't have a charter for it, so they're going to have to qualify their way in for all of these races, including the Daytona 500. So if Preece doesn't make it on speed in qualifying or gets wrecked out in the duels, we're not going to see the 37 and Ryan Preece in the 500 here, which would be very unfortunate. We've seen them blossom into a two-car team. AJ Allmendinger kind of leading that force back in the day, that 2014 win at Watkins Glen, and then they've slowly moved into that two-car program here. Chris Buescher took a great step there before he left the team with Roush, and now they got Ricky Stenhouse Jr., and a former Nationwide Series champion that was then. And then now we've got Ryan Preece, someone that was pretty impressive in the Xfinity Series and hasn't really found his stride yet in the Cup Series. We'll see if that happens this season. But for right now, they currently have 24 of the 36 races funded. So that leaves a lot of opportunity there for the team to try and find some funding, or they're going to be left out to dry. And they're going to be running as an open car, as I said. So we'll see. They'll be picking and choosing what races they decide to run. If it does come down to that, where it's not financially stable for them, they'll pick and choose what races as the season rolls along. They're fully intending, to run this full season if they can get that funding. But for right now, 24 races for them as of right now, and 12 races kind of out in the dust. So what do you think of Ryan Preece here, Kyle? The entire situation over there for JTG Doherty Racing. I know you, on our most recent episode, you had them going down to a one-car stable. It could come to fruition even as soon as this season.
Yeah, it's unfortunate news for starters that a team that we've seen kind of be a mainstay of the mid-pack over the last few years probably won't be running every race this year, but it also makes sense when you look at all the decisions they've made recently. The decision to keep Ryan Preece in the fold despite some mixed results makes a lot more sense when you look at the situation coming into this year, when they might not even run every single race and they don't have a charter to be confirmed for every single race. So it makes a lot more sense now, the fact that they kept Preece around. And going into this year, I thought that maybe they'd go and try to strengthen the Hendrick relationship there and maybe bring in a Chevy development driver or something like that, like Noah Gragson currently in Xfinity with the Premier Chevrolet team there with Junior Motorsports. Would have made a little bit of sense if he jumped up to the Cup with JTG and then maybe strengthened some relationships there. But keeping Ryan Preece meant that there was probably either some stability that they wanted at the team or something was happening. And obviously now we know they don't really have the funding to go for 2 full-time cars. And hopefully they do end up running the full season just on an open basis. We've seen recently teams like MBM run the full season on an open basis. Going back a few years, Ryan Blaney did it once for Wood Brothers as well.
That's crazy.
There's been semi-competitive teams that have run on the open label since the charter system has come into place. Hopefully Ryan Preece and JTG are able to run every race, but right now it's not looking all too optimistic.
No, that's for sure. It's unfortunate. I really do like that team.
I hope they do make the field for the 500 because we've seen JTG has a ton of speed on the super speedways as well. So maybe that's a team that gets on raw qualifying pace and they don't necessarily have to worry about the duels as much. But there's a lot of really solid open entries this year, especially for the 500. So it's going to be great to watch qualifying then. And then obviously the duels and Priest is going to have a ton of speed there. But as you mentioned, all it takes is missing out on that top 2 qualifying spots for the open entries, striking out in the duels, and all of a sudden your top underdog pick that isn't even making the field.
Yeah, there's a lot of pressure on Priest here to perform in his races that he's going to be running. And if he can get some results early on, maybe they can find that sponsorship, that funding as the season rolls along. It's going to be a very crucial. If they miss the 500, I think that could be almost a deal breaker for them. If you have a car that doesn't make the Daytona 500, it's not going to look good. It's not going to be an appeal to sponsors or the driver itself to try and get that sponsorship. So they've got to really come out of the gate strong. And I hope that that's the case because we would not want to see Ryan Preece in a situation that he's been kind of backed into a corner here. There's nothing really he can do about it. It's just a lack of funding for the team. And it's just really unfortunate. I hate to see something like this. It's kind of like Go Fast Racing a little bit with what they're doing this season. They just kind of dismantle the entire project. Obviously this is a less extreme case with Ryan Preece in the 37, but nonetheless, when one team comes in, maybe we're losing one entry here as the season rolls along, but we're optimistic that Ryan Preece can't find that funding. I mean, just look at Rafael Estrada over the offseason, was intended to do part-time. They found that funding, and now he's going to be running the full season with GMS. So it's not total in a dire situation for JTG as of yet, but of course they're going to be looking towards getting some sponsorship as the season rolls along. We move on here to Garrett Smithley, a name we just talked about recently in the Pro Invitational side of things, impressed on there. And he's going to be doing a part-time schedule for Rick Ware Racing in the Cup Series this season. I just feel like they've got all these cars. I don't know where they're coming from. Like, it's incredible. They're all over the place. Rick Ware, he's in IndyCar, Cup Series. We're going to be talking about him a little bit later on with IMSA. Like, he's across the board. I'm surprised he hasn't started a Formula One team yet because it seems like he's got money to burn and he's everywhere in the world of motorsports. But Garrett Smithley here has had an up and down kind of career here, I'd say. Was in the Xfinity Series for a little bit with JD Motorsports and now has kind of found himself in the backmarker situation in the Cup Series side of things. So he's had a couple of instances where he's been in the way as a lap car as well, and not to harp on it too much, but that is a crucial part of just staying out of the leader's way when you are running a slower car. And Garrett Smithley has had a couple of instances where he's been in the way. So part-time schedule works for both sides, I guess, just getting him some seat time. And for the team itself, he can have a decent result here or there if he keeps his nose clean and stays out of trouble. But Garrett Smithley returning to Rick Ware Racing, he ran a little bit for them this past season. I think it was like 20-odd races or something like that for the team as well. So do you have anything to make of the Garrett Smithley edition for Rick Ware?
Yeah, it was one that I think we expected to see just because Spire isn't necessarily running or as much in terms of the rotation of drivers this season. They're looking to more solidify their spot with kind of a main team there with Coy LaJoy, and then still a rotation with the 77, but we've seen names like McMurray for the 500. Justin Haley's going to be running some races, so we don't know who's going to fill out the rest of that schedule. Maybe Smithy ends up doing some races still with them, but we expect him to kind of do the same thing that he's done the last few years, which is a few races for this team, a few races for this team, that kind of thing. And with Rick Ware having a couple full-time drivers this season and Bilicki and Cody Ware, there's 2 cars still to fill up, so makes a lot of sense for Smithley. Just kind of keep doing what you're doing and see if you can land something either full-time with one of those teams later on or parlay that into something else.
Exactly. We move on to the Clash. Just a matter of days away, it seems. It's very close.
Like,
very, very
what,
close.
Like 10 days, something like that now?
Yeah. We're recording this on the Thursday, the 29th.
Friday.
So,
Friday the 29th, sir.
Oh, God. Oh, God. That's not a good look.
No, it's not.
All the days and the weeks and the months are all mixing together.
I feel you on that one.
All right. Friday. We were recording this on the Friday, the 29th.
You almost did it again.
No, I didn't.
Okay.
Edit this part out.
I'm leaving this in.
I know you are. The Clash. Let's get to that.
Yes.
They have their format in place. 35 laps, competition caution on lap 15. That's it. That's basically all they're doing to the event. 35 laps. Let's not forget that they are on the Daytona road course for this one. I disagree with that decision entirely, especially when we're having the race in the second race of the season is on the road course. I don't think we need a double dosage. The Class or the Budweiser Shootout, as it was formerly known, was a great race when it was called the Budweiser Shootout, and it was a phenomenal race. Like when they did everything with speed back then. That's a throwback. Oh man, I miss speed days so much. We could actually watch the truck races and. You know, they had like the whole trackside stage and they had the drivers come up on their, I guess it was like maybe Saturday night or something like that. I guess it was because it was on Sunday. No, maybe Friday night it was. And then they had like the beer bottles or whatever. And then they just they took a beer bottle, whatever starting position was inside of it. That's where they started. And it was such a great event when they stuck that. I think people are blowing it way out of proportion on how crazy it has been with this car and this package for the past couple of seasons when it's just been a wreck fest and nobody's really surviving it then. But that is what the Clash is meant to do. It's just basically a mini all-star race, and it's just meant to be for fun. It's not meant to do anything besides tear up some cars, essentially. I know that's not what the owners want, but from the fan side, I think Eric Jones winning that race last year was probably one of the craziest things I saw all last season. That race was so dumb. Oh. Exactly. And I'm upset that they are doing it on the road course because I think they will realize, oh, shoot, we messed up here. I don't think it should be on the road course unless Chase Elliott decides not to show up. I think it's going to be his to win. So I don't know. The competition caution at a weird time too. Lap 15, it's a little early in the race, so they're going to have 20 laps to the end, and I feel like they can get pretty spread out. If they were going to do it, I would say like maybe just split it in half almost, 17. I don't know why it has to be on 15, but I don't know. I'm not as amped for the Clash this year as I usually am because I do think that the Super Speedway package and what we have currently could it really excel with what the Clash usually is. And I mean, how can you not forget the 2012 Budweiser Shootout? I mean, it's not just because Kyle won it, but I mean, that was an insane race. He spun out 3 times and he won the damn thing. Like, it's just meant to be an all-star caliber thing where it's for fun. And I don't know. I just think that the fans that were being the most vocal last year were saying, oh, we need to get rid of this. We'll try out the road course. They didn't know what the future had in store with looking at what the road course actually supplied us in terms of entertainment. So I think they can't really double back on it, but hopefully in 2022 with the new car, they'll put it on the actual oval. But your thoughts on the quick little format after my tangent there.
Hey, you know what? I think that's a very fair tangent because, we didn't really know that we would be getting a regular season race there and then a second one at the beginning of the year when that was announced in the first place. So it's been unfortunate the way that things have fallen because I think if we didn't have the race last year and if we didn't have it as the second race this year, then I think we'd be a lot more excited for it. But the first race didn't really live up to expectations. And so all that kind of stuff leads to a less exciting Busch Clash, but it's on the Tuesday night under the lights. We'll see what it's like. But yeah, my hopes are not super, super high either, but who knows? Maybe we get something fun there. It is going to be the 750 package as well instead of the 550 from last year's race. So who knows? But in terms of the format, it does seem a little bit weird that it's 15 and 20 instead of like splitting the difference or something like that. It's kind of strange in that regard, but I don't know. You pick a number, you go with it. We'll see what it goes like. We'll see if it's going to be a snooze fest, a crash fest, or a race that blows our mind. I really have no clue what it's going to be like, especially with the 750 package as well. So I'm holding out some hope. I'm hoping that we still get to see like a Ty Dillon in the 2311 entry or something like that. I think that could be cool. But it's the format. There's not too much to dive into.
No, not really. We're looking forward to the duels. That's where the action really kicks underway.
Yeah, it
And
is.
qualifying, of course, on the Wednesday. But the
Qualifying,
duels,
yeah, the night qualifying is going to be fun. Yeah.
yeah, both of those. After the Tuesday, we'll talk about the clash briefly when we get to that point in time.
Yeah.
But we'll get into some serious action when Speed
Oh,
Week
yeah.
really
Oh,
rolls
yeah.
around. So we'll talk about a new team here, Kyle. Trackhouse releasing 3 sponsors and 3 different paint schemes. I gotta say, I was pretty blown away with the looks of this car. I was pretty happy.
Pretty good, man.
I'm gonna give Trackhouse the one up on 2311 Racing on paint schemes thus far. I'm sorry, 2311 Racing. You kind of let me down on that DoorDash scheme, and these 3 sponsors are pretty interesting as well. iFly, they used to be on the NASCAR side of things as well. If you remember back, I think Kyle JGR had it as an Xfinity Series sponsor on a couple of occasions.
I think so. Yeah, that's right.
Oh, I remember this. I
know you. I expect you to remember it. But.
And then Pump It Up. Don't you know? Pump It Up. You've got to pump it up. Don't you know? Pump it up. I wish they put that music behind the intro. Why? That was such a missed opportunity when they released the paint scheme. But Pump It Up is going to be their second sponsor. And then K1 Speed, go-karting, well known across North America. I've raced them a couple of times. Very fun go-kart. And
that's a cool sponsor.
That is a really cool sponsor for racing. And 3 kind of new entries to the Cup Series side of things in terms of sponsorships. And similar kind of patterns for all 3 of them, just kind of a similar design, but they all have their own different uniqueness, if that's even a word. But they look really, really solid. I think it's nice. It's nice to get a refreshing vibe out of a new team. It's not your standard paint schemes. It was, kind of cutting edge a little bit more. It had some flair to it, which was really nice. So what do you make of the 3 new paint schemes and the 3 new sponsors?
Yeah, for starters, it's great to see the new sponsors and everything like that with the new team, with the pulling power that it has with Justin Marks, who's been a main part of NASCAR for a long time here. And obviously Pitbull now associated with that team. I'm sure that brings in a decent amount of sponsorship having him involved. But no, it's cool to see that they've kind of gone with this unique style, but then kept that style across all their schemes. Because you can tell that each scheme's different from what we've seen. Some of them have been fully released, some of them only teased and that kind of stuff. But
all 3 of them have been released now.
Oh, was the third one fully released? I only saw the tease for it.
Yeah,
but,
black and red.
It's cool that they're kind of going with 3 different schemes, but all in the same style that is very much their own. I think that's really cool, and something that NASCAR it does miss quite a bit is not having as many of the full time sponsorships where you associate a certain brand with a certain driver, a certain team, or anything like that. And if you can't get a full-time sponsorship, well, then make the style yours. And so it's a bit of a different approach than what we've seen. Obviously, we're used to very different paint schemes week to week for most teams, and Trackhouse here is kind of going a little bit different, where they've got all these different sponsors, but similar kind of schemes for them all, which is going to be really cool to see.
Yeah, I'm super excited for Trackhouse, man. They seem like a pretty cool team.
Was not expecting to be this excited about Trackhouse when it was first kind of rumored.
Yeah, Daniel Suarez, maybe all these years of trying to find that ride, I think he's may have found something here that's going to be pretty special.
Maybe. We'll see.
I'm pretty hyped about it. So very, very, very cool to have 3 new sponsors come in and 3 wonderful new paint schemes come in as well for this upcoming season. Kyle Larson also revealed his 2021 paint scheme for the Daytona 500, that is. I think he'll be running this in select races throughout the season. It's Nations Guard is the sponsor. It's a Hendrick company, very similar to what HendrickCars.com essentially is. It's just kind of an offset of that. It's basically from the same thing, but not the HendrickCars.com, and that we'll see him run a couple of times this season as well. He's got the pictures with the fire suit on, so we'll see that paint scheme at some point in time. But for the 500, it's a black, white and green scheme for Kyle Larson. Kind of bland, I'm not going to lie. I was expecting maybe a little bit more for the 5 cars reemergence into the sport here. But what do you make of the sponsor and the paint scheme?
It does feel very much like a Casey Kane kind of scheme, doesn't it? Like
I don't know. Farmers Insurance paint schemes, I thought those were one of the best paint schemes I've ever seen in the sport.
Well, no. I'm not saying in terms of it being like a bad scheme or anything like that, but it does feel like it's a return to like that kind of era for Hendrick
in
here.
A way,
it's
a little
probably
bit.
just seeing the 5 and everything like that associated with it, but no, it's a fine scheme. Like it's nothing that blows your mind. It's not horrendous. The green accents I think are solid, but it's just kind of a meh paint scheme
I was
because it's
expecting more.
primarily black and gray. So yeah, I feel like he could have done more. Like if there was more green in it, I think it could have been nice. But yeah, I was hoping for a little bit more for not only the Fives re-entry, but also Larson. I figured there might be something kind of over the top or nice about the scheme, but it's just kind of bland.
It really does show you, though, that they've really struggled to find that sponsorship for Kyle Larson, that they're
They'll be
having to
waiting a
stay.
while.
Yeah, to
It's going
find
to be
that.
Nations Guard. It's going to be HendrickCars.com. It's going to be all those. I don't even know if we'll see like a Chevy Goods or anything like that. I think it's all going to be kind of the Rick Hendrick based stuff.
Yeah, that's very unfortunate for Kyle Larson. He couldn't quite find that sponsor that's willing to back him here. So that's,
Which also isn't surprising, but
no, but it makes sense from a marketing side of things. You don't want to necessarily associate with somebody after the stuff that he's gone through this past year and what he's done. So it makes sense from that point of view. So I think Hendrick kind of had this kind of tentative plan outlined, and it became more and more real as the offseason went on, and Kyle Larson's at least got some sponsorship for the full season. That was never really in question. It was just whether they were going to run HendrickCars.com the entire season, but at least they've got Nations Guard as a little bit of a spicy twist to what maybe we weren't expecting to their season for Kyle Larson. Austin Cindric has a paint scheme as well for his Daytona 500, hopefully making his Cup Series debut for himself in the number 33 for Team Penske. Verizon, a very big sponsor here.
Return, yeah.
It's, remember Verizon? They used to be a former big thing in the Xfinity Series for Roger Penske back when Justin Allgaier raced the number 12. If you remember that far back, I was watching 2009 Nationwide Series races last night, and that paint scheme popped up, and it was pretty sporty, I got to be honest. And this one looks pretty similar, and pretty awesome to see Verizon come back in a main capacity here for that team. We don't know if he's going to be running that paint scheme for the entire season when he runs his Select Cup Series races. It's going to be on his Xfinity car as well for the season opener. So double weekend here for Verizon to start off the Daytona 500 weekend. And it's a pretty slick scheme. I'll give it credit to Austin Cindric and Team Penske. And I mean, could we be looking at a future sponsorship here with maybe Wood Brothers or something like that with Verizon? I don't know. There is potential there, and Verizon has just kind of been looking. I'd say Sprint was obviously the big sponsor, so they couldn't really rival that and put Verizon on the Cup Series car. But now that it's the Cup Series, they have this opportunity to kind of market this new, or not new, but this telephone, cable, whatever you want to call it, company that has done some pretty great things in the past with the sport. So what do you make of the paint scheme and the newly named sponsor for Austin Cindric?
Yeah, it's really cool seeing Verizon's return, because it's not too many years ago that all of the Penske, like from NASCAR to IndyCar to IMSA and anything that they would do, had the Verizon kind of logos on it, or at least a Verizon style, because there was a few times where Verizon sponsored the car, but they couldn't put the logos on it because of the Sprint sponsorship for the main thing. So it was just like the Penske branding with the Verizon colors and all that stuff. But no, this is really, really cool. And it's a slick looking scheme. Nice to see that for Cindric here, and also not just for the Cup Series as well, getting that for the Xfinity Series, which, as you said, may lend to some future sponsorship in Cup as well with Wood Brothers or Penske or whatever happens there. So yeah, no, a nice little return there, because it's been a couple of years since we saw Verizon in NASCAR specifically with Team Penske. So it's good to see a big name sponsor return with somebody like Austin Cindric.
Exactly. Staying in the Team Penske stable here with another sponsor, Keystone Light. We talked about that on the latest edition of the episode. It's been officially confirmed. They're moving to a new Blue Deuce here with the Keystone Light paint scheme, and it's going to be run for only one race as the primary sponsor for the Coca-Cola 600, which is a bit surprising because they usually do the Miller Lite kind of I guess American themed with the flag on it, Patriots Day, obviously, Memorial Day weekend. They do a great job with that paint scheme. It's one of my favorite paint schemes of the year, to be honest. Yeah. And we'll be interested to see if they do something similar, but it doesn't look to be the case because they released the paint scheme. So not going to be a Memorial Day paint scheme for Brad Keselowski, it looks like, this season. It's an interesting time to do it, but it's got some good viewership for the Coca-Cola 600, so I'd imagine that's why Memorial Day weekend beer kind of fits the American theme. So it makes sense that they would want to sponsor that race. So they got one race on the car. There'll be a secondary sponsor for the remainder of the season, but they'll have the big logo on the scheme for the Coca-Cola 600. Frank Kerr will be the crew chief for BJ McLeod's number 78 for Live Fast Motorsports this season. good little addition there. Frank Kerr's been around for a little while, and we'll see how they perform in their first season here. Obviously, that relationship between BJ McLeod and Matt Tift. That was my mistake. But yeah, Frank Kerr, a decent little addition here. I'm struggling to remember where he was before.
A few places. So I'm looking at the racing reference page, and
was he ever with Richard Petty?
So in Cup, Marcus Ambrose for a couple of seasons.
Oh, yeah.
Bobby Labonte, David Gilliland, Cole Witt, Corey LaJoy. But most recently in 2020, he did a couple races for Tommy Joe Martin. Shout out Tommy Joe. One race for Ross Chastain in the Truck Series as well. And then a couple of races as well back in 2019 for Natalie Decker and a few. So he's still been kicking around the last couple of years, but a return to the Cup Series here for somebody that's been working around for a little bit here, obviously mentioning names like Marcus Ambrose and whatnot. But a nice little addition here for BJ McLeod. Again, not anything spectacular we're expecting from the team in year one or anything like that, but just kind of building some pieces, putting some pieces in place. And the main thing for a team like that is the stability or consistency. And if you can get somebody like Frank Kerr in and keep them around for a few years, I think that's where you start to build. And it's a decent little hire here.
It's going to be weird to see the 78 at the back of the pack. I'm not used to that number being back there.
There's a couple of races that the BJ McLeod team has run, but not on like a week-to-week basis or anything like that. Yeah.
With the big announcement over the offseason kind of thing, you pay more attention to that number now.
Yeah.
And you mentioned Natalie
Similar
Decker there
kind of colors too as well.
Yeah, exactly. And you mentioned Natalie Decker there. She teased a little something on her social media that she has signed something for this upcoming season. What that's going to be, we'll find out probably in the next week or so.
The way that Nice has been throwing trucks around left and right, it might just be another Nice truck or something.
It did look like a DGR Crossley logo. I'm not going to lie, though, on the paper. So I did a little bit of snooping around in the comment section.
They've got two confirmed trucks right now, and then probably we already know there's a third part-time. So
yeah, I think that there could be something there. The girl team, girl power over there for DGR Crossley in the Truck Series might be a pretty good marketing ploy as well. I think it'd make a lot of sense. So we'll see if that insider information you just got here right on the green flag.
I will fully shout you out if that comes to fruition.
Appreciate it. Clip it right now. Even if I'm wrong, just clip it. Whatever.
Okay, fair enough.
We'll move on to the Xfinity Series here, Kyle. Some pretty big news out of the big all-star team for Joe Gibbs Racing and the number 54 making its triumphant return on a hopeful full-time basis for this upcoming season. First off, Ty Gibbs will compete for the ARCA Series Championship for Joe Gibbs Racing this season. And in that same announcement, he's going to be making his Xfinity Series debut later on this season in the 54. For Joe Gibbs Racing, a pretty cool opportunity there. Obviously, the grandson of Joe Gibbs, so you'd expect him to make that appearance for that team. He's definitely down the pipeline.
But he deserves it.
Exactly.
Let's make that clear.
This is not grandpa's money getting him here. He's a very talented race car driver. Impressed last season when he did his part-time ARCA stuff. And I think that he can be definitely a championship contender, maybe the championship favorite down there in ARCA with the backing that he's got from Joe Gibbs Racing. And when you look at the competition he's up against, I put money on Ty Gibbs to win the ARCA championship.
He's got to be the favorite there.
And of course, it makes sense. Go to the Truck Series potentially after that with KBM, or maybe even Thor Sport maybe down the line if they want to use that Toyota relationship.
Sam Mayer just skipped it altogether, so maybe he does too.
That's totally within the realm of possibility here. But Ty Gibbs is definitely another prospect in the making here, and I could see him, if the career trajectory keeps going, a potential replacement, dare I say, Kyle Busch down the line. They've had a bit of rapport in the past, so we'll see if that maybe comes to fruition. I don't want to put that out there.
To say.
But they do have a solid relationship though between Kyle and Ty Gibbs. They've been working a little bit together. I know Kyle borrowed Ty's sim rig over the past year for the Pro Invitational, so I don't know, just speculating there. Who knows? The 18 and the 18, that's just the numbers they've been growing up with. So we'll see if anything comes within that. But onto the 54 car for most of its full-time lineup for right now. Ty Dillon was the big announcement here. He's going to be running for JGR's 54 entry at the Daytona season opener here. Homestead, Vegas in the spring, and Talladega in the spring as well. So pretty cool opportunity here for Ty Dillon. It's a big tie day over there at Joe Gibbs Racing. Ty Gibbs, Ty Dillon, and Kyle Busch, as expected, is going to be doing his 5 maximum races for the Xfinity Series. Don't even get me started on that stupid rule, but Atlanta, Atlanta, he's going to be running the spring race, Circuit of the Americas as well for its inaugural weekend. He's going to be running that for the Xfinity Series, Texas Motor Speedway in the kind of summer, springish area around then. And then Nashville making its return there. He ran there in the past for Joe Gibbs Racing when it was on the calendar in the Xfinity Series. Did quite well there. Carl Edwards was pretty good around there, so he fell second to there, I think, the last time he raced there in that series. But Road America is the final race for Kyle Busch in the Xfinity Series this season. So some interesting notes on that. Road America, COTA, and Nashville, 3 new tracks really to himself this season that he's opening himself up to. And that lends itself because the Cup Series is going to all of those places this season. And it's just to get some seat time and get familiar with the track that he's going to be going to that same weekend for the Cup Series. And let's not forget, Kyle Busch is 3 wins away from retiring from the Xfinity Series. He says he's at 97. He hopes to get to 100 this upcoming season for Joe Gibbs Racing. And we'll see if those 3 races, you look at Atlanta, Texas, and potentially Nashville as the favorites. But he's a pretty decent road course racer as well. So we'll see if he can fight Austin Cindric, AJ Allmendinger, the likes of them on those road courses in his entries. Martin Truex Jr. makes his return to the Xfinity Series as well this season in the 54 car at Atlanta for the summer-ish fall race that's down there in August. So pretty cool opportunity here to see Martin Truex Jr. back. I remember him running in the 99 car for a while. Ryan Truex also ran that back in the Xfinity Series days. He was kind of just poking around down there for a while in the Xfinity Series, and then he finally got his big break up there with MWR back then, and then he's been to a whole bunch of different places really in his Cup Series career. But it's going to be cool to see him back on the Xfinity Series side of things. And Denny Hamlin, as expected, makes his one and only start for the Xfinity Series in the 54 at Darlington, his playground as per usual in that series, and he gets his probably Sport Clip sponsorship for that race as well. So, and that's going to be the fall Darlington race as well. That's not, wait, no, that's the spring one now. That is the spring Darlington race for Denny Hamlin this year because they've got 2. They can't run that second one, I don't think, because
it's a playoff race.
It's a playoff race. So, yeah, Denny Hamlin going to be running at Darlington this year as well. So Christopher Bell, a notable absence, I guess, from that Xfinity Series lineup there. I'm surprised that he hasn't been announced to run anything over there at the Joe Gibbs Racing stable now. So we'll see if he maybe makes a couple of appearances there. Was pretty damn good down there when he did race. So we'll see if he makes an appearance in the 54 car, but he was not one of the announcements that JGR sent out over the past couple of days. So what do you make of the newly named 54 All-Star car that is going to be trying to go for that Owners' Championship this season? They're still waiting on trying to find some funding and some sponsorship and some drivers opening for that season.
Yeah, that's a fun one. That's a fun one to toss around because you're going to have a big reference point as to the productivity of that car through the top end guys like obviously Kyle Busch, but also Denny Hamlin and MTJ, which I was not expecting to see in that announcement, to compare right up against top prospect Ty Gibbs and somebody looking to return to the Cup Series and Ty Dillon. So you've got 5 very, very fun names all mixed in there. And I'm sure we'll probably see maybe 1 or 2 more names added to that list. I think we'll see Ty Gibbs a decent amount in that car, especially into the playoffs. If they do get that full season and they are running for the Owners' Championship, I would expect Ty Gibbs probably to be that guy that's running in it by the end of the season just to get him that seat time. Because if you're looking at it, he's probably going to go straight from ARCA to Xfinity, kind of like what Sam Mayer's doing. I would guess that's the route that they go. But yeah, no, that 54 is going to be really fun. And they've got a Cup Series crew chief as well. And Chris Gale, that's going to be there, who's doing the 20 previously with Eric Jones. So you've got a decent little crew chief there as well. So that car is going to be one to beat for sure, regardless as to who was in it, because Ty Dillon's been a top Xfinity guy in the past. He's won an Xfinity race before. Ty Gibbs is a top prospect. So don't really know what to expect from him, but then the 3 Cup Series guys are going to be the favorites any race they walk into. So very, very fun 54 this year.
It's not a great look on Richard Childress, I gotta say, for Ty Dillon to go over to Joe Gibbs. Yeah, I'm shocked that Ty Dillon did not find a spot over there at RCR over the off season. Like it just,
or maybe he didn't want to. I mean,
it could totally be
a possibility. It could be something where
outside of that
they
for a while.
Him, offered him a part-time thing or something like that, and he'd prefer to go other routes. I mean, if I had the option between a part-time Gibbs car and a part-time RCR car, I'd probably take the Gibbs car. But yeah, so it is a bad look, though. Not gonna lie.
Yeah, I'm fascinated to see how this 54 car does. I really want to see an owner's car battle back again. I like. Oh God, this stupid rule that they have with these driver limits just drives me nuts. I can't
keep complaining.
I'm
Your
just
guy
saying,
just doesn't win as much anymore. It's okay.
Okay, for the people that complaining,
I'm kidding.
No, you're not kidding.
Boy.
For the people that are saying stuff like that, Kyle would have been out of the series a long time ago if they got rid of this stupid rule, so you wouldn't have to complain about it.
Not necessarily.
Why not necessarily?
Because if they let him run it, he'd probably still run it.
I don't know. He said he would retire at 100, so I think he would retire at 100.
I think he's retiring at 100 because regardless, it doesn't matter. It would be funny if he just keeps racing after 100.
When I look at the Nationwide Series, what it was, and the championship, I think I haven't mentioned this part of it too, is that the rivalries that were built on the Saturdays translated into the Sundays. You know, that's where the Keselowski-Kyle Busch feud started, down in the Xfinity Series.
But it was only kind of the Keselowski ones, was it? Like no,
Keselowski and Hamlin.
Okay, not including Keselowski. Like there wasn't really that many outside of him because he was a Cup Series driver that wasn't getting the opportunity because Mark Martin was still in a seat. But
no, but that was even into 2010, even too, with Carl Edwards at Gateway when he turned him.
I know what I'm saying is outside of Keselowski, there wasn't that many.
But Keselowski is just a great controversial person to start everything with, but I think
that there's a happy medium between what you would like and what NASCAR currently has. I think they should do more than 5, open it up a little bit more, but I don't think that it should just be free game like it used to be.
If they don't run for the championship, I don't see what the disappointment and we're at the point, what the difference is. I don't care. But that's my another Xfinity spiel.
There's your classic Xfinity tangent.
Yep. I can't. Oh, God. Whatever.
Okay, just one last thing. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think the best way to do it is if you own the car, you can run it full time. And then that way you promote or you have incentive for those Cup guys to go and have teams at the lower levels, which also brings up more opportunities for young drivers, you would assume. But that way you're not also filling up seats with Cup Series guys going in and running full-time instead of a young guy. I think that's the happy medium. I think that could be a good thing, but alas.
Yeah, I would definitely agree with that. I just think that it's too harsh right now, especially when Hamlin and Truex are only running one race. Like they're just like not taking advantage of it. They're just kind of being lazy a little bit. Like if there's a little bit more incentive to it, I think that they would want to race more, but I don't know, just when I look at the post-media comments and stuff like that, post-race stuff that they do, they're like, I love being down here. Well, they can't do that anymore. It's just very frustrating because I do think it has taken away with my appeal of the Xfinity Series for the past couple of seasons since they've implemented this rule. It just hasn't been the same as what it used to be, but I digress. For the Daytona 500, we've got 30,000 fans in the seats for this event. So they announced that today. It's expected to be 30,000, but you can bet your ass that it's going to be 30,000 people showing up to Daytona in Florida. Pretty cool that they're going to have some fans down there as long as it's taking the proper social distancing policies and precautions in place. We can't ask for much more than that. They're going to be restricted, obviously, to the grandstands, no garage access, no, anything like that with the pit passes, but at least we'll be hearing the roar of the fans. They're just going to have to be a little bit extra loud for this one to try and pick it up on the mic. So pretty cool to have at least 30,000 fans is nothing to scoff at either. It's pretty decent size for a crowd. So, pretty cool that they're having fans for the Daytona 500 come.
Yeah, no, any number that is reasonable and is safe, you got to try and strive for. And 30,000 in that kind of facility should be doable if people are abiding by the rules and everything like that. We'll see if that actually is the case, because a lot of the time we see that it's nice and fine and socially distanced throughout the whole race, and then the ending comes and everybody, or the red flags, Jesus, I forgot about that. Oh my
Texas.
Lord. But as soon as the race is over or there's a red flag or anything like that, everyone flocks right to the fence and it completely defeats the purpose. So if it's actually enforced, like at the Chili Bowl, for example, we saw people actually getting kicked out for not wearing masks and stuff. Hopefully socially distancing and stuff like that is actually enforced at this race. But as per usual, in Florida or whatever, my hopes are not astronomically high.
Yeah. Likewise. Fox released its broadcasting lineup for the upcoming Speed Week. So Chris Myers returns to the NASCAR broadcast. He's done the Daytona 500, but for the past 1-2 seasons, I think it's just been one.
I think it's at least a couple.
2, maybe, potentially. He hasn't been around for the rest of the season. They've been doing the in-studio, the green screen stuff at the Charlotte studio, so they haven't really had to have that at-track host. They're changing that up this season. They're bringing Chris Myers back. It's going to be a welcome sight to see him back at the racetrack. He's a great at-track host. He's going to be partnered alongside Michael Waltrip as per usual, so they'll be having some fun, I'm sure. Bring back the Hollywood Hotel, please. That would actually be pretty cool if they could bring that back. I just want to bring back the glory days, 2007, 2008, 2009, 2010. Like, I just miss those days so freaking much, and it's just nice to have a little bit of that back here with Chris Myers.
The race day stuff,
yeah, I know. God. Oh God, yeah.
You got Tom Rinaldi over there too now, so
exactly.
You got most of the college game day now. Just bring it over to NASCAR again. But
Tom Rinaldi, as Kyle just said, there will contribute to the Daytona 500 coverage. I'm sure he'll be like the storyteller kind of thing. Yeah. He'll be some sort of emotional piece, I'm sure, with Tom Rinaldi there. So that'll be pretty cool. Tony Stewart's going to be in the booth for the Xfinity Series race as well. Let's not forget, this guy was a fantastic super speedway racer and dominated the Xfinity Series in the season openers at Daytona when he used to run for Junior Motorsports and just kind of did his one-off race in the season. That car always freaking won the race. It was pretty incredible. And I miss those days, the Oreo paint scheme that he usually ran. Tony Stewart was a great entry. God, this is what I'm talking about. You see, the old days when the Xfinity Series had the Cup guys go down just was immaculate, just perfect. And Tony Stewart's going to relive his glory days in the booth for the Xfinity Series race. But he's going to be pretty interesting to see how he does with the broadcasting side of things, because when he watches post-race interviews and stuff,
have to have the censor button.
Pretty much, but at least he doesn't have really any ownership stake in this one except for Riley Herbst. That's his only really entry that he has to worry about, and besides that, he can just enjoy the race. But Tony Stewart will be a pretty interesting entry because in his post-race interviews, he'd always be like, like he'd always have – when he said one thing, then he'd always say that, and then he'd move on to the next thing. It was always a typical Tony Stewart interview, along with other typical Tony Stewart race interviews as well. He had quite a few instances over the years, but his protege, I guess, Chase Briscoe, will also be in the booth with Jamie Little for the ARCA Menards race for their season opener at Daytona as well. So just some interesting notes there for the Fox broadcasting side of things. Remember, Matt Yoakum will not be with the team this year with the pit reporting. We're going to have Regan Smith on a full-time basis down there. Yep, you heard that right, folks. They replaced Matt Yoakum with Regan Smith. Dare I say more?
We were doing so good.
Dare I say more?
We were doing so good. There's so many nice little things and off the rails once again.
Dare I say more? Disappointing to say the least. Jamie Little will obviously be continuing her pit reporting duties along with Vince Welch. So those will be your three: Regan Smith, Vince Welch, and Jamie Little throughout the season for Fox. So what do you make of the announcements for the upcoming Speed Weeks with Fox?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Chris Myers. I've always been a big fan of him as a host, especially on the NASCAR side of things. So it's nice to see his role expanded, because doing the 500, it adds to kind of the mystique of the event when that's the only race he's doing. But it just adds so much more to the rest of the season when he's doing at least the Fox portion, of course. So I'm a big fan of that. I wish that they'd have somebody else besides Michael Waltrip with him, but alas, well, he still has his moments, but I'm just kind of over him.
I miss Daryl. I miss Daryl.
Yeah. But no, the Stewart thing's going to be, I really don't know what to expect there. I'll be completely honest. I don't know if it's going to be a hit, a bust, and it's probably going to be either or. There's no in between. And then for Chase Briscoe with Jamie Little, I think that's a really cool one as well. Get somebody who's very, very
former
fresh.
Champion.
Exactly. And have him alongside Jamie Little. And of course, I'm definitely tuning into that, not just because it's the season opener for ARCA and everything, but because Jamie Little is going to be doing play-by-play, and that's going to be really cool to see how she does. And alongside somebody like Chase Briscoe, I'm a little surprised that they don't have her doing it with somebody who's more experienced. I will say that having two brand new people in there should be an interesting thing to see how it goes, but I fully expect Jamie Little to be a complete and consummate pro. She's so good at everything she does, and I don't expect that to be any different with the play-by-play. And we've talked about the pit reporting before. I don't need to dive back into that, but the Tom Rinaldi one is very interesting, though. I can't remember the last time I cried going into a Daytona 500, but this might be one, because Tom Rinaldi is classic for his tearjerker stories that he did over on College Game Day and everything like that. And I'm sure he'll bring that over to the Daytona 500. And he does such a good job with everything that he does. That was such a huge coup for Fox, obviously, on the sport media side of things. I know, getting niche, nerdy, whatever. But I'm excited to see that he's doing stuff for NASCAR as well.
Yeah, it's a pretty interesting announcements, I have to say. Some pros, some cons.
Yeah.
But overall, I'm excited for this upcoming season. Obviously, Clint Boyer making his debut in the booth as well, the partner Mike Joy and Jeff Gordon. So that should be an interesting dynamic as the season rolls along. We move into the Xfinity Series here. Andy Lally will drive for Our Motorsports in the number 03 for the Daytona Road Course. Lally was a top 5 for this team when he drove for them in both races for Road America and the Daytona Road Course as well. So he's a very good road racer and has proven that many times over his NASCAR Xfinity Series career when he's had the opportunities, even in the Cup Series as well. He's had some pretty great runs with some lower tier equipment, and I think he could probably excel once again. He's going to be running the Rolex 24 this upcoming weekend as well. We'll talk about him a little bit later on, but pretty cool to see him getting another opportunity here for a couple of races at least. Just for one for right now, but we'll assume that he may get a couple of others as the season rolls along. But Andy Lally's going to make his Xfinity Series debut for the 03 entry at the Daytona Road Course for this season. Drew Dollar is going to be doing 8 races for KBM in the 51. So he's been running the ARCA Menard series for a little bit here. Has done some pretty solid things in that 20 car. We'll be interested to see if he's the next kind of thing.
Won at Talladega, right?
I believe so.
That was where he won this past year.
I'm not 100% sure on that, but that sounds right.
Super speedway race.
Yeah. We'll see if he's the next big kind of KBM thing that they're trying to line up here. When they usually put somebody in the 51, they kind of lend themselves to getting a full-time opportunity down the line. Harrison Burton, Christopher Bell, Eric Jones, to name a few. Like, we've had quite a few come through there and has got that full-time ride in the truck series. So he's going to be running at the Daytona season opener, Charlotte, Texas, Nashville, Bristol, Vegas, Talladega, and the season finale at Phoenix. So that's going to go in order in terms of the races. Goes from the opening with Daytona, ends in Phoenix there. You can realize what races they are in between that. Vegas, the second one, Talladega, the second one. I don't need to explain it any more than that. But Drew Dollar is going to be a nice little addition there for KBM in the 51. So what do you make of those two moves there with Lally and Drew Dollar?
Yeah, with Lally, it was the one that we kind of expected here because he was with the team last year. They're opening up the second car with Moffitt doing full-time in the 02. And yeah, it just makes sense. He's so good in stock cars at road courses. It just makes sense for him to land somewhere. And it's nice that it's kind of with consistency here with a team that he was with last year a little bit. Hopefully we see him on some more road courses as the season goes along, because we don't really get the road course ringers anymore the same way that we used to. And
a lot of things.
Okay, there's a difference between big name Cup stars coming down and kicking around some young guys.
Okay, sorry. That was a little bit of a low one.
Regardless. Anyways. But no, it's kind of like a little bit of a throwback there with the road course ringer thing and Andy Lally. So it's going to be nice to see. And the nice thing as well is that it's in kind of mid-pack equipment. And so you really get to see the talent of those guys and bring it up and contend with some of those higher end teams. So Lally was great last year in his cameos he made with Our Motorsports. Probably going to do that for more than just Daytona again this season, but excited to see him if it is that only race there. And then with Drew Dollar, he is a TRD guy, so it does make sense that he's getting into a few races with KBM there. I doubt that the performances there will directly impact whether he ends up at a KBM seat or whatnot, but there's some silly season stuff that could, of course, happen with KBM there. John Hunter Nemechek filling up a seat. We don't know what he's going to do past the season, but I doubt that he's going to be returning to the team after this season. I can't imagine he's doing 2 years.
If he wins a championship or something like that,
who knows?
Definitely not. But
who knows?
Yeah.
there's probably going to be an open seat at KBM, whether that goes to somebody like Ty Gibbs or whether he goes straight to Xfinity or whatever. Drew Dollar is one of those kind of in the mix guys over at TRD, and it just makes sense to get him a few races. I don't have huge expectations for him. He was fine, but not spectacular in ARCA, especially given he was with a very top team in Venturini there, and only won the one race, and it was on Talladega as well. But we'll see what he does in those KBM runs, and of course returning to ARCA as well. So should be some fun outings there for Dollar and for Lally as well.
Yeah, we stay in the truck series here with this next bit of news. Danny Bone, I don't know how to pronounce that.
I'm pretty
name,
sure it's Bon.
We'll go with Bon. Will drive for On Point Motorsports in the number 30. He's going to be running that in the season opener, and with the hopes of running a full season. They're trying to put that together as the season rolls along. So pretty cool entry there in the number 30. And then Corey Roper and Roper Racing will be running the full Truck Series season for the Camping World Truck Series. So that's two new additions there to the Truck Series for hopefully a full-time basis. I mean, they just keep coming, and I honestly don't know how they're all going to fit into this race, because there's a lot of entries. There's going to be a lot of competition throughout the entire field in Xfinity, Cup, and trucks now. It's just pretty crazy that they've been able to put all of these full-time entries together. So do you have anything to add on Roper or Bone before we get into IndyCar?
Yeah, not much on Roper. He ran a few races last year. I don't got too much on him. But for the 30 On Point truck there, Bond ran the, I think, basically the second half of the season for that team. I was kind of hoping that Brendan Poole would land there because it doesn't look like he's going to be doing any Cup stuff this year. He might still do part-time for Rick Ware because they purchased that charter from Premium Motorsports, of course. So maybe he still lands there, but Poole did the first half of the year for that team, and the success was better with Poole than it was with Bond. But if he has a sponsorship, go with him, I guess. I don't know where Poole's going to land. I was hoping it would be there, but that's just kind of the way it's gone. Still remains to be seen where Poole's going to do anything this year, though.
Exactly. Yeah, it came out today that he doesn't have any plans for this upcoming season as of yet. So if he lands somewhere, we will definitely keep you up to date on that story. But that does it for the NASCAR news portion of the episode. We've got some IndyCar news, though. Got some pretty big ones. We're pretty biased towards this next one here. James Hinchcliffe will be returning to full-time IndyCar competition for Andretti Autosport in the number 29. Our Canadian boy has been
Mayor of Hinchtown.
Yeah, exactly. Been an outcast for the past couple of seasons here. Hasn't been able to put that full-time ride together. Been doing some part-time stuff, some filler roles whenever he's needed. And he's going to get that shot to come back for a full-time basis. And he's definitely deserving of that opportunity. So very, very happy to have him back. Probably the worst kept secret in IndyCar silly season side of things right now. Surprising they didn't come out sooner, but at least it is confirmed in the mayor of Hinchtown. Hinchtown is going to be back in IndyCar and fighting for a championship, hopefully, for this upcoming season. And then we'll go through the rest of the IndyCar news as well here. Ed Jones will drive for the number 18 for Dale Coyne Racing, replacing Santino Ferrucci, obviously coming over to the NASCAR Xfinity Series side of things. So pretty good ad there. I'd say he's had some pretty decent results, over his tenure in IndyCar, doing some part-time stuff, some full-time stuff over his career as well. So a pretty decent ad there for Dale Coyne, a familiar face over there as well. And then Dale Coyne Racing has partnered with Rick Ware Racing. That is just such a tough one for me to say. Rick Ware Racing.
It is. It doesn't look hard to say, but Rick Ware is kind of. You just kind of sound. You want to say Rick Ware.
Rick Ware.
It's a weird one to say, but
it is a weird one.
I'm glad that you do that as well, because I kind of messed it up too.
I can't say it for the life of me, but they're going to be fielding a third entry for the Indianapolis 500, the 19, which is expected to go to Romain Grosjean. I did not know this before today, but Jennifer Fryer is first on the scene here. There's an announcement meant to be coming out next week with this, and he's going to be going into the 51 car. It's going to be rebranded into that for the 2021 season. So Romain Grosjean is going to be coming to IndyCar, it seems, which is a really, really cool story to have. I love Romain Grosjean. How can you not after this past year? It's self-explanatory, everything that's happened to him. We don't need to go into it again. But Romain Grosjean on the mend, doing well, and he's going to be coming over to North America, it seems, to run full-time for IndyCar for Rick Ware Racing. Got that right that time. And Ed Jones and James Hinchcliffe, really great IndyCar portion of news over the past 24 hours, 48 hours. It's been really nice to get some refreshing IndyCar news. It has been a little bit since we've had some driver market side of things. So what do you make of the move of potentially Romain Grosjean? It's not confirmed, but it seems to be the case. Ed Jones and then the mayor of Hinchtown coming back to IndyCar full-time.
Well, I got to start with Hinch, right? You got to. It's great to see. It's the worst kept secret in IndyCar. We knew that he was going to land at that open Andretti seat. It was just a matter of when it was announced. And super, super excited for him. The way that things ended at Schmidt-Peterson was extremely unfortunate given how long he'd been at that team and kind of everything that had happened in the past year as well at that team, how it was kind of adopted as the Canadian team when they had Wickens and Hinchcliffe there, and how everything kind of started to fall apart when Wickens had his injury at Pocono. And then Schmidt-Peterson partners, or I can't remember if he sold or partnered or whatever it was with McLaren, and then McLaren drops Hinchcliffe even though he had a contract late into silly season, didn't have an opportunity to go find somewhere else. But kind of a blessing in disguise there because he gets to return to Andretti here. He had the part-time schedule last year, hit or miss results, which you would expect on a part-time basis in IndyCar. It's very much a series where you need to be running week in, week out to be competitive. And yeah, an extremely competitive entry for him in the 29 there with Andretti. It's a return to Andretti as well for him. So I'm very, very pumped for that one. Hopefully he has another good season here. But yeah, I'll be cheering for him the whole way, as I know you will as well. And fingers crossed, we get to see him in that 29 here on the streets of Toronto. I'm hoping, but
Are you going to be able to watch it from your apartment there?
I don't know. Not from the apartment here. I'm
just going to have to get a good view. Yeah. Go watch from the CN Tower or something like that.
Yeah. I'm not near Exhibition Place, but like I'm kind of on like there's like the two kind of parts of downtown. I'm not near like all the sports and whatever right now, but you can bet your ass if I'm here and that race is on. I'm hoping that that's the first like proper race I can go to live. I'm hoping. I don't know if it's going to play out well because of COVID and everything, but my fingers are crossed, and hopefully Hinchcliffe. Okay, regardless. Anyways, Ed Jones, he exists too. Kind of cool to see him come back here. He's doing some Rolex 24 stuff this weekend as well. Mm-hmm. And yeah, he's a guy that had a promising first season with Dale Coyne, went up to Chip Ganassi, disappointed there, and kind of did similar stuff with Ed Carpenter. So he started hot, kind of overperforming at times in Dale Coyne, got that promotion and never really did anything with it. So it's good to see him come back with a team that he had some past success with, of course, third in the Indianapolis 500 with that team back in 2017. So hopefully Ed Jones can prove his worth here once again in IndyCar and kind of solidify himself here with Dale Coyne. And to the Dale Coyne point, I thought that, this Romain Grosjean rumor has been around for a little bit here about the Dale Coyne and him, but it's never been tied to that Rick Ware entry. And the fact that it's going to be Dale Coyne with Rick Ware probably adding Romain Grosjean is fascinating to me, because you would have thought that it would have been the Vassar Sullivan entry that he would have been partnered with, and then Ed Jones would probably go with the Rick Ware one, but definitely, I never would have thought that Romain Grosjean would be associated with Rick Ware Racing, but here we are. And it's going to be great to see him come back. The storyline for that's going to be huge. Hopefully he can come back and be healthy for the start of the season. But you can bet your ass that I'll be cheering for him, because if he can have any kind of success, not only with Dale Coyne, but in IndyCar in general, after what happened at the end of last season, would be just truly remarkable, and just kind of shows the heart of Romain Grosjean and of drivers in general to go through that and go to a series that has more crashes than Formula One does. So pretty remarkable for Romain Grosjean. If that does come to fruition, Ed Jones, good to see him return. And of course, we love our James Hinchcliffe out here.
Of course. We can't dismiss our Canadians like the American media does. We are going to give them their due diligence. And we've got some pretty cool IndyCar stuff there. That was a really refreshing piece of news that we've got there. Hinchcliffe.
Just finally.
Yeah. Ed Jones is a pretty nice addition there. We'll see what their results are going. We'll see how he does in his hopefully reemergence back and rebirth, I guess, into IndyCar, just trying to get a kickstart back to what he used to be. And then Romain Grosjean, we could have him over here, IndyCar pretty much legend, I'd say, over the past couple of seasons for stuff on and off the track. And
I thought he would have done some sports car stuff.
see,
After
a little bit more like
the crash and
Magnussen
stuff.
Yeah, but
so
it's pretty to go back into an open wheel. It takes a lot of courage, like for Roman Grosjean.
Maybe in a year's time we're seeing Roman versus Kevin on IndyCar tracks. I'm hoping Magnussen makes the jump over to Ganassi when they have some more time to figure stuff out, but that's a ways down the road.
Hopefully. Fingers crossed on that one. But that does it for the news and notes for today's episode. It is time to get into the Rolex 24 preview. Whew, strap in, folks. This is going to be a good one. It's not going to take 24 hours to preview this one.
I really hope not.
All right. This is the 59th running of this race, so we're getting close to that prestigious 60 mark, but 59th this season starts at 3:30 p.m. Eastern on NBC. When you're watching this, it will be the day of, so make sure to tune in at 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on NBC.
Yes.
It will be all over the place in terms of scheduling. It will be on the main network to start, and it's all over the place from there on. So you're gonna have to find somewhere to watch. I don't expect NBC to be running 24 hours of the same thing. So it's kind of where you have to go find it from there on. But it starts on the main network there. And then just a quick reminder of last year, Wayne Taylor Racing's number 10 Cadillac is the defending overall winner of this race. And last year we saw a great battle in GTLM as well between BMW and Audi in the final hours. So we'll see if maybe that comes to fruition once again. We've got a new entry into the Rolex 24 as well with LMP3. So we've got DPI, LMP2, LMP3, GTLM, and GTD. So very, very, I guess, wide range of vehicles we've got on display. Lots of different manufacturers: Cadillac, Acura, the big ones up there in DPI, BMW, Ferrari's in there, Porsche's in there, Orica, if I'm saying that correctly, Ligier. We've got a whole bunch of different manufacturers that have come to play. Chevrolet with the Corvette, obviously. That's always going to be one to keep your eye on. Lamborghini as well, Aston Martin. The list goes on and on with a lot of these ones. Mercedes as well. So we've got some really great entries here. Lots of different manufacturers, lots of variety. Dallara as well. There's so many different things. If you're a fan of specific manufacturer, you've definitely got some options to choose from for this event. But we have some big names as well that are on a wide range of motorsports from across the world. We've got, your regular IMSA guys, but NASCAR guys have come down for this. IndyCar is a prominent one as well. A couple of former Formula One drivers. So pretty cool to see a very wide range of talent, very wide range of motorsports being represented in this year's Rolex 24 with 49 entries. So a bit up from last year, obviously, with the extra class.
Which is great to see.
Great to have a little bit more vehicles on the track, which, lap cars do play a big interference with this race. As 24 hours rolls along, you do pass the same cars quite frequently. If you're on the DPI and you're passing the GTD cars, you pass them quite a bit. But we've got the overall winner, and then we'll break down our predictions in terms of who we think is going to win each class as well. So stay tuned for that at the end of the episode. But we'll start off today by looking at all of the DPI, because that is the big one. That's the
overall, yes,
Daytona prototypes. So there's some pretty big names in this class across the board. So we'll start off in number order for Cadillac and Chip Ganassi Racing's entry, returning to the IMSA side of things, endurance racing. They've won this race, I think, a record 8 times, if I'm not mistaken. It's been quite the success for Chip Ganassi on this side of things in motorsports, and they've got only 3 drivers for this one. And so there's 3 entries in the DPI class that have 3 drivers, and this is one of them. Renger van der Zande is going to be in that 01 vehicle for them. Kevin Magnussen, Kevin Magnussen, he's pretty prominent. And then Scott Dixon, the defending IndyCar Series champion, is also going to be driving for, of course, Chip Ganassi Racing. So a big name lineup there, 3 drivers. So we'll see if fatigue plays into anything as the night rolls along. It does come an egregious kind of task for these guys to go as many hours and as many stints as they do, but I'm sure they have a strategy to have it all planned out to compete with the 4 driver lineups that they have in competition. So what do you make of the Chip Ganassi Racing lineup there in the 01 entry for Cadillac?
Yeah, this is going to be one of the teams to beat because, of course, this is Chip Ganassi's re-entry to the event as well. Last year, it was the Wayne Taylor Racing number 10 that had the likes of Scott Dixon and Renger van der Zande. Well, this year, that entry is now an Acura and Chip Ganassi's back. So that entry's kind of been split in terms of the drivers there. And two of those, Dixon and Van der Zande, obviously going to Chip Ganassi here. Dixon, of course. And Kevin Magnussen added to that as well. And that's going to be his first Rolex 24. And you can do a lot worse than entering your first Rolex 24 with Chip Ganassi and three-time DPI and overall winner Scott Dixon, and back-to-back overall winner Renger van der Zande. So this is absolutely, if not the most, top two, top three, certainly star-studded lineups here. And although the qualifying and the qualifying race didn't really go their way, especially with some of the tire strategy that they tried out, don't let that deceive you. This is going to be a team that is contending for the win, and might just be the favorite going into things.
They qualified fourth, as Kyle mentioned there, so maybe a little bit down from what they were expecting for the race, but fourth is still pretty respectable. 24 hours, you can have a lot of time to make up on your competitors. A lot of things can happen over those many hours around Daytona, and don't let the fourth starting spot try to deceive you from what that potential of that team really is. It's going to be a pretty fun battle up there in DPI. We move on to the second entry here, Mustang sampling here for JDC Miller Motorsports for a Cadillac entry. You've got Tristan Voltier, if I'm saying that correctly, Loic Duval, and then Sebastien Bourdais, an all French lineup over here. Going to be a very interesting one as well. The 3-car entry, once again, not as maybe big of names as maybe on the motorsports North America side of things and what we've seen in IMSA, but Sebastien Bourdais is a pretty sporty racer on the IMSA and endurance side of things. And of course, Duval has been pretty much prevalent in the Rolex 24 at the front of the field, and basically every year he's run it. So what do you make of the Cadillac entry here for JDC Miller Motorsports?
Yeah, this is one that might be a little underrated just because it doesn't have the sexy names attached to it in terms of both drivers and the team itself. But this is a solid entry here. Sebastien Bourdais is a fantastic driver, and whether that's an IndyCar or sports cars or whatever, don't forget he won the overall Rolex 24 back in 2014. He won GTLM back in 2017. Last year he finished third also with Loic Duval in that entry. Tristan Vautier finished fifth last year, so joining this entry this year. And they finished third overall in the qualifying race as well. So they've got a little bit of pace to them. Obviously, we don't know if some people were maybe sandbagging a little bit in that race, of course. But this is definitely an entry to keep an eye on. Not the favorite by any means, but they've got some really strong racers here, and they can definitely be there to take advantage if somebody else has some issues, whether that be in terms of cars falling apart or wrecks or anything like that, fatigue. There's always a lot of craziness that happens in these races, and with a lineup like this can absolutely be maybe a sneaky contender for the DPI championship here.
For sure. Like you said, qualifying third in that qualifying race last weekend. So solid starting spot as well. So don't underestimate these guys. The three-man teams here got off to a pretty strong start in qualifying. So we'll see if that continues. And
Bourdais did drive it in the qualifying race as well. And you'd probably think that he would be the main guy on that team as well. So
yeah, that's a good tidbit there, Kyle. Very well spotted on that one.
I got the list here, so I'm all ready to go.
We move on to the next one here, a big one, number 10 for Acura, Konica Minolta. This is a big one. They've got a star-studded lineup here. Starts off with Ricky Taylor, probably one of the most well-known road course racers on the IMSA side of things, endurance. He's just done everything. He's been waiting for that NASCAR ride. He's been tweeting about it if they can fill him in for one. I'm shocked that nobody's given him that chance because he is so good on these kinds of tracks and in this type of car. He's just like one of the best drivers I've ever seen on this side of things. Then we got Felipe Albuquerque. It's not Albuquerque, it's Albuquerque. All right. I did not mess that up. He's going to be one to watch as well. Ran really well last year in his stints for the team. I believe it was the 77 last year for himself. So had some pretty good runs there, if I can recall correctly. Alexander Rossi, very well known, former Formula One driver.
For himself, yeah.
IndyCar driver currently. He's going to be one to watch. And then Helio Castroneves rounds out that star-studded lineup here for that team. very, very intriguing matchups here with compared to the other lineups that they have to go with. They qualified 5th, so maybe a little bit lower than what they were expecting for this one, but I think this could be definitely a contender when the night falls, and then as they go into the morning. I think this 10 car, let's not forget the number 10 car for Wayne Taylor Racing. This is kind of that same team a little bit. Wayne Taylor Racing, not the same, obviously not in this side of things anymore, but that number 10 won the race last year, so we'll see if they can come back and repeat this year. So what do you make of this really intriguing lineup here for the number 10 entry?
Yeah, it's a fascinating one here because mainly this is the team that won last year, but it's a completely different car because last year they were a Cadillac, kind of in that Chip Ganassi mold there, featuring Scott Dixon, of course, Ranger Van de Zanda, Kamui Kobayashi, and Ryan Briscoe. This year, switching over to Acura, and with Penske leaving, it's kind of like a pseudo Penske entry / Wayne Taylor Racing when you look at the names involved here. So you've got Felipe Albuquerque, of course, who has been a mainstay in sports car racing, especially here in North America recently, won the overall victory in 2018, and DPI also won GT at Rolex 24 back in 2013, finished 7th last year. And then the other 3 were all in the same entry last year. Elio Castroneves, Alexander Rossi, and Ricky Taylor were all in that number 7 Acura Team Penske last year that had some issues and finished
They wrecked
8th.
Early.
Yeah. And when you look at how things went last year and the quality of that lineup, they're absolutely going to be looking for vengeance this season. And they're going to be, as kind of like with the rest of these guys, a team to beat because all of these DPI lineups are really, really strong. And as we saw in the qualifying race, the pace is really close for a lot of them as well. So it's going to be a fantastic race coming up this weekend. But I think that number 10, especially when you look at who's behind it and the drivers with it, I think that's right up there with that 01 Chip Ganassi Racing as a team to beat for sure. Is one of the probably 2 or 3 favorites.
For sure. I definitely see it that way. Very, very cool to see a lot of these star-studded drivers get together on this side of things and compete at this high of a level. Just really, really cool. We move into the pole sitter for the Rolex 24 here. The number 31 entry.
Team to beat, question mark?
It could be. We'll discuss it here. We've got the Whelen Engineering Racing Cadillac DPI entry here. Some pretty big names here. Felipe Nasr, former Formula One driver, just excels on the IMSA side of things. Always a contender. Puts in a great shift every time he goes out for a stint for the Rolex 24, Le Mans, whatever it may be. He's always very, very solid. Mike Conway, we had a discussion about this before the show. It's not Kevin Conway. It is Mike Conway.
Very different.
Very different. It's not Kevin Conway, the former NASCAR driver that couldn't keep the car in a straight line. Mike Conway is definitely not that. He's one heck of a race car driver, going to be a very crucial part to that 31 entry. Pippo Durrani, we mentioned him on this show a couple of times over the past couple of months, I'd say, over the past year since we've been doing it from the home stable, I guess. Going to be a really crucial part as well to that team. And then the defending Cup Series champion, Chase Elliott, is a part of this one. He's in DPI. This is a huge step up for Chase Elliott. Never run the Rolex 24 before. Totally going into the deep end, and he's just going to have to learn as he goes. And it's going to be very, very cool to see him compete against the next entry we'll talk about with Jimmy Johnson, his former teammate. So there's a bit of bragging rights there for sure. And Chase Elliott did not qualify the car. It was Felipe Nasr and
Pippo Durrani.
No, Mike Conway qualified the car.
Sorry, Pippo Durrani did the qualifying race.
Did he?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Never mind. That's not what it says here, but
is that qualifying you're looking at, not the qualifying race potentially?
I have qualifying results.
So yeah, that would be the stuff from Saturday, and then to set the grid for the Sunday qualifying race.
I see. Wait, am I getting the wrong things then?
You've said correct stuff so far, I do believe. So I got the results here. So
yeah, so they got pole with Nasr and Conway. So then they won the qualifying,
and then they won the pole on the Sunday with Durrani and Nasr.
Who do you have second right now?
Second in the qualifying race was the 55 Mazda of Oliver Jarvis and Harry Tinknell.
Okay, I just have it something different here. I have Felipe Nasr and Mike Conway as my drivers, but nonetheless, yeah. Pretty interesting entry for sure. Pole sitters, pretty self-explanatory, I'd say. Very, very cool to see Chase Elliott making that step up to the IMSA side of things. Excuse me. When you look at what Kyle Busch did after winning his Cup Series championship, went all the way down to GTD, and now he's on the opposite side of things. Chase Elliott here, so getting a huge upgrade here in terms of performance. So going to be contending for the win for the Rolex 24. So what do you make of the Whelen Engineering number 31 entry? Excuse me.
Yeah, I think I've said that there's been a couple teams here that look very strong, but I think the 31 Whelen Engineering Cadillac is probably the team to beat, because you look at Felipe Nasser. He's got a lot of IMSA pedigree to himself and is a former F1 driver, for crying out loud. Pipo Derani has been a fantastic IMSA driver, and Mike Conway just won the WEC championship with Toyota Gazoo over in WEC. So three extremely talented sports car drivers. And yet Chase Elliott in there as well, who by all reports has been no slouch as well in that 31 entry. So when you look at the pace of his teammates there with Durrani and Nasser and Conway, Elliott's looked good as well. A rounded out lineup before there. I think based off of the qualifying pace, both in the qualifying and the qualifying race, I got to say, this is probably the team to beat. And I think that this is probably the favorite here. When you look at the results last year, they've got three guys that were all on the same team last year. They're just replacing Felipe Albuquerque for Chase Elliott there. So they're familiar with each other as well. I think that this is absolutely the team to beat going into this year's Rolex 24.
Interesting. I mean, pole sitter, you can't really go wrong with them being the favorites, but there's some pretty good competition that they're going to have to come up against.
Yeah.
So I think this next one is a very interesting one. The number 48 entry, Allied Cadillac Racing entry here. Star-studded lineup here, probably the most name-worthy well-known names in terms of lineups in the DPI class. We've got Jimmy Johnson, self-explanatory. Kamui Kobayashi, the defending race winner of this one, crossed the finish line for that team last year. Was a sensational talent, and we've talked about him on the show plenty of times, and he's going to be one to really spearhead that entire ship over there with the 48 entry. Simon Pagenaud as well. Self-explanatory, really great race car driver. And then Mike Rockenfeller as well. Very solid race car driver in himself. So I don't know what to make of this lineup. It's kind of disappointing in terms of how they qualified here last of the DPI class in seventh position there, excuse me. But they have the talent to kind of compensate for that kind of poor qualifying effort. So what do you make of this lineup here going into the Rolex 24?
This one is probably the most fascinating lineup to me, because you've got Kamui Kobayashi, who in my opinion has been the best sports car racer over the last few years. He's won back-to-back Rolex 24s, but this is a new team for him here with a new, completely new driver lineup here. You got Jimmy Johnson, who I don't really know what to expect from him here. It's been a while since he's done any of the sports car Daytona stuff. He's been focusing a lot on the IndyCar stuff as well. I don't know what to expect from him performance-wise. Simon Pagenaud's consistently great in the sports cars. He finished fourth last year overall in DPI. And then Mike Rockenfeller coming over from DTM. He won overall in 2010. His last he didn't race in the 2020 Rolex 24. He was last in it in 2019, making his return with DPI as well. So this team is kind of all over the place. You've got arguably the best guy in the field in Kamui Kobayashi. You've got Pagenaud, who it's not his main thing, but he's solid at it. Same for Rockenfeller, and a wild card in Jimmy Johnson. So they've got the name value. The performance wasn't there in qualifying. Now that could just be sandbagging and waiting for day of. But I don't know if I can give them the top end or favorite label, even though they do have Kamui Kobayashi. I think this is a fantastic team, but when I'm looking at the 31 entry, when I'm looking at the 01, I think that or even the 10 as well, I think that they've got more well-rounded names in there, and I think that they've also shown it more over the past week and a half here. So I'm definitely keeping an eye on that car, not only because it's beautiful as hell. It's going to be fascinating to see what they actually do on track, but I really don't know what to expect from this 48 Ally.
Yeah, I think that's a good point when you brought up that the well-roundedness is so crucial to this because you're going for many, many hours
Kobayashi
here.
can be the best guy by a mile for his stints, but if Johnson, Pagenaud, and Rockefeller are beat by the rest of the other guys, then it doesn't really matter, right? So
Exactly.
that's what makes this Rolex 24 so interesting to me, because you've got 3, 4, 5 different teams here that look so good, but for different reasons.
You can't have Kobayashi just always playing catch up when he goes out there. He needs to have some solid stints where he
Yeah.
doesn't always have to feel like he's the guy that has to compensate for his teammates' lack of performance. Not saying that that's going to happen by any means. I'm very fascinated to see how Jimmy Johnson copes with this
Yeah.
new terrain. He's no stranger to the Rolex 24. Has run it a couple of times in his past, but it's been a
It's been a
while.
while. Yeah.
It's been
there you go.
it's been a while. So we'll see if there's any sort of struggle there. Ally as the main sponsor for this one as well, so there may be a bit of added pressure for Jimmy Johnson in that respect. But
Probably.
the 48 entry, very, very interesting to see what they put together over the time it took to put this all together. This entire entry, they've got a really great lineup from the outside point of view, from just statistics and everything. It's just whether they can there's some cohesion over there, and they can really blend together to create a solid entry for the Rolex 24 as the hours roll on. So one to keep your eye on for sure. Not the favorite, I'd say, but they could be
They got
crossing the finish line first.
So
Come the season, come the race's end. So very fascinating to see how that 48 entry does. We move on to the third and final 3 driver entry here for Mazda Motorsports, the only Mazda entry in the DPI class as well. We've got Oliver Jarvis, Harry Tinknell, and Jonathan Bomarito, if I'm saying that correctly. But we got 2 British drivers, 1 American, so quite the combination there. And, they're not the biggest names. I'm going to be completely honest in terms of what we have come to expect on the endurance side of things from what we know on North America, but they qualified second. They are going to be one to keep your eye on for sure. If they can maybe come in here, slide under the radar, we can maybe see a Mazda as the only entry winning the Rolex 24, but we've got 24 hours before that is decided. So what do you think of the Mazda entry here with the 2 Brits and the American?
Yeah, it's an entry that flies under the radar, but it's the only Mazda, so all the attention is going to be paid to that team. You've got 3 guys that are sports car drivers as well, so you're not bringing guys over from other disciplines that are having to adjust their styles to the sports cars. And we saw it in qualifying, and in the qualifying race, finished second there. So they've got some pace as well. I think this could be a team that maybe falls back as the race goes along potentially. But looking at that lineup, it's an underdog lineup for sure. And similarly to that number 5 entry featuring Sebastian Bourdais, Loic Duval, and Tristan Vautier, that's a lineup that if they just kind of mind their own business, do things at their own pace, they can take advantage of other people's mistakes. And they've shown it so far that they've got the raw pace at times when they need to. So definitely don't sleep on the number 55 Mazda.
For sure. Qualifying second is pretty damn impressive when you look at what they're up against. So
definitely
sneaky entry here for Mazda. If they can, like you said, all the resources, we've talked about this on this show before, where if you dedicate the resources, that's kind of what Ford's doing on the NASCAR side of things, where they're kind of investing on the lower scale, but putting everything they have, the attention to detail. Maybe that pays off for Mazda as the 24 hours rolls along. And we move into the final DPI entry for this Rolex 24. Meyer Shank Racing. Fun one. Very much so. Meyer Shank Racing with Curb. I'm not even going to try to say that name. Agajani. Janaean. I don't know.
Meyer Shank Racing it is.
Meyer Shank Racing, the Acura entry here as well. So there's 2 Acura entries. This is the second one of them, and some pretty well-known names in this one as well.
Yeah.
Dane Cameron, Olivier Pla, Juan Pablo Montoya, and AJ Allmendinger. So a couple of old Penske guys finding their way over here from Meyer Shank Racing. Juan Pablo Montoya, probably the most notable of that. He's always impressive. Probably the most well-rounded race car driver maybe in history, I'd say. How well he's excelled in so many disciplines.
NASCAR, and F1, IndyCar.
Super underrated, man. Super underrated. And hopefully he goes out there and proves some people wrong in this Rolex 24. But the 60 entry here, what do you make of some very interesting names? Olivier Plot ran really, really well last year in the Rolex 24 as well. I'm not too familiar with Dane Cameron, but an American entry nonetheless. So 2 Americans, a Frenchman, and a Colombian there with Montoya. So Allmendinger as well, very well known. But he's moving up to the DPI class this year, so that's a pretty solid opportunity for him as well.
Yeah, this is another fun one. And this is another Acura entry that kind of replaces what they're losing in Team Penske moving away from IMSA here. You've got AJ Allmendinger, of course, who was in GTD last year. They had some struggles, but has been an overall winner before back in 2012. You've got Dane Cameron and Juan Pablo Montoya coming from that number 6 Team Penske entry from last year.
Right.
They finished fourth.
I don't know why I don't remember.
And then really well. Olivier Pla, who finished second last year, racing with Mazda Team Jost. So you've got some guys with legitimate pedigree in this race, in addition to AJ Allmendinger, who it's not his usual thing, but he's shown time and time again he's a damn good racer no matter what you put him in. So again, it's kind of like there's the big name entries, and then there's like the underdog entries, and this entry's kind of in between because they've got big name value in Montoya and to a lesser extent Allmendinger, but they're kind of that underdog a little bit as well. So I think that this is probably going to be right in the middle between the top end favorites and maybe some of the more underdogs here. But this is absolutely a lineup that can go out and surprise some people. As I mentioned, Cameron and Montoya finished 4th last year. Pla finished 2nd, and Allmendinger has won the overall victory before. So this is a fun lineup for sure for Meyer Shank, and one definitely to keep an eye on as the race goes on, as we said for a lot of these teams, because the DPI class this year is so competitive. There's not as many entries as there were last year for DPI, but all of them are extremely competitive entries, which is going to make for a great 24 hours.
For sure. They qualified 6 for this event as well. So that rounds out the lineup there. A little bit towards the back, obviously, of the DPI class, but don't let that draw you away from the star-studded lineup that they have.
When you look at the DPIs in the qualifying race, you had the 31 finish first with a time of 1 hour, 41 minutes, but then 3.5 seconds back of that, you had the 55 Mazda. A second back of them, you had the number 5 JDC Miller Mustang sampling. A couple seconds behind them, you had the Meyer Shank. So, like, all of these teams were extremely close in that qualifying race. And again, it could be teams sandbagging, saving their stuff, they don't want to show their cards early. And I'm sure there's aspects of that, especially when you look at the 10, 48, and 01 and the way that they finished near the back for the qualifying race. But I think all these teams are going to have pace, and it's just going to be both maintaining inconsistency throughout the 24 hours and avoiding trouble, of course.
Survival of the fittest. That's basically what the Rolex 24 comes down to. So that's the DPI class for this year's Rolex 24.
The big dogs.
We'll move on to some notable names in the other entries for the other classes.
Yeah, we'll do this more rapid fire.
Exactly. LMP2, Robert Kubica, going to be coming back to the IMSA side of things, was a reserve driver, obviously, for Alfa Romeo on the Formula One side of things this past season after being ousted at Williams for Nicholas Latifi a couple of seasons ago. So he's going to be making a return over here to the IMSA side of things for the number 20 entry for high-class racing, an Orica vehicle there. Then we've got Guido van der Garde, pretty well known in the sports car side of things. He's going to be racing for Orica Team Netherlands in the, where is the entry here? Number 29. Number 29, that is for Guido van der Garde. And then the next one, Antonio Fuoco here for Dallara. If you don't know who Antonio Fuoco is, was a former Ferrari junior driver, was well on his way up the pipeline, and then he's just kind of hit some roadblocks as his seasons and his careers kind of come along. But don't look away from Antonio Fuoco. Could be a sneaky kind of driver over the 24 hours here for Dallara Settler Racing, if I'm saying that correctly. There's a lot of unfamiliar names. I'm going to be completely honest with these as we go along. And then Cody Ware, our boy Cody Ware is going to be over here in LMP2. He's for Ligier and, of course, for Rick Ware Racing. And then Austin Dillon is also in that ride for that team. He's driving for Ligier for Rick Ware Racing as well. So 2 familiar names, 2 Cup Series stars there in Cody Ware and Austin Dillon. And then Renus VK for Orica and then Dragon Speed USA are the notable names really that we can kind of pinpoint to in the LMP2 class. So what names maybe stands out to you the most, or what are you thinking for this entire class in general?
Yeah, the one that stands out to me most is, of course, Robert Kubica. He's been one of my favorites for a long time, and he didn't even qualify the car in the qualifying race, and they finished second overall in LMP2. So that's a car that has some pace. That's a team that has some pace, and Kubica wasn't even a part of that for the qualifying race effort. So keep an eye on them for certain in this one. When you look down, obviously, we're going to be keeping an eye on that 51 Rick Ware Racing Eurasia entry because it's got two NASCAR names in there, and Austin Dillon and Cody Ware, and we don't really know what to expect from them. Eighth in the qualifying race in LMP2, so not a great effort there. But Austin Dillon hasn't been known as a great road racer in his NASCAR career. So an opportunity here for him to learn some stuff. And Cody Ware has been a good road racer when he's made some spot starts in NASCAR. He's going to go full-time this year and with Rick Ware in the Cup Series. So a nice little start to a season this year. And then for the Dragon Speed entries, the 81 and the 82 for the 81, Renus VK, of course, IndyCar Rookie of the Year, I do believe, this year. Fifth in LMP2, they qualified in the race. Got a Canadian on that team with Garrett Grist as well. So shout out to him there. And then in the 82 as well, our boy Devlin DeFrancesco, the Canadian. Not a great qualifying effort there in ninth in LMP2, but DeFrancesco has done some sports car stuff in the past. This time doing it with the LMP2 side of things with Dragon Speed. But Dragon Speed is a team that won LMP2 last year. The 81 entry with Colin Brown, of course, a former NASCAR name, but also Ben Hamley, Henrik Hedman, and Harrison Newey. So the Dragon Speeds are, even though they didn't qualify great, finishing fifth and ninth in the qualifying race, they won the thing last year. So, of course, they're going to have pace this year again, and some interesting names on that team as well.
For sure. There's some pretty interesting, as you said, interesting names in LMP2 that are in that second class, right? They're the second fastest cars that are going to be around the Rolex 24 Daytona International Speedway. So keep your eye on some of these guys. Who's going to get some bragging rights out of here? Can NASCAR overcome IndyCar, or does Formula One even reign supreme there with Robert Kubica? So some pretty interesting names over there for LMP2. And there's only three really ones from LMP3 here. Colin Brown, as you said, if you don't remember Colin Braun, he was a pretty great Truck Series driver back in the day. He made
an ARCA cameo last year.
Did he?
Yeah, he replaced Sam Mayer at the Daytona race.
Oh, man.
When Mayer was hurt and he had to, or he started the race so he could still get the points, but left halfway through the race. And because it was that Daytona road course weekend when nobody could race in two races, and it was the first one, they had to get somebody that wasn't doing anything else, and it happened to be Colin Braun. And so a little fun one there. But yeah, no, a fantastic sports car racer. NASCAR name from days gone by, I believe in the Roush development system he was, and has made a name for himself, of course, here. And yeah, he's absolutely going to be a name to watch in the new LMP3 class.
Exactly. This is the new entry for the Rolex 24 this year as well. So not too many of them. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 entries for the LMP3 class. So not too many, but there is a couple of interesting names. Spencer Piggott for Ligier Riley Motorsports, and alongside him, Oliver Askew here for Ligier Riley Motorsports. Yeah, 100%. And then Colin Braun is with Ligier Core Autosport, excuse me. So the number 54 for Colin Braun, and then the 74 for Piggott and Askew. So pretty interesting names there. Two Indy cars, and then one NASCAR, so you can reign supreme on that side of things. But the Riley Motorsports entry is definitely the one you're going to be watching in that class.
And just we don't know what they got because they didn't participate in the qualifying race either. They DNS'd in that run, so they'll be starting at the back of the pack. But with the lineup featuring Askew and Piggott, I think obviously Colin Braun's going to be the guy to beat in LMP3, but I feel like that 74 is probably the team to beat just with the name value there.
For sure. I think it's going to be a fun little battle there for LMP3. It could go down to the wire here.
Yeah.
And
don't know what to expect either because it's a new class. So
exactly. One name in GTLM, unfortunately, it's Timo Glock. I think that's Glock. I mean, how can you not remember Timo Glock, the most iconic moment in Formula One? Lewis Hamilton. I think that's Glock. Oh my goodness me, it's Glock.
Can't we have Interlagos as the season finale?
I know. But that was when the championship battles were close, so let's not forget that.
Fair enough.
But Timo Glock, well known for that side of things. He's racing for BMW's entry for the Team RLL. just for the name value, Timo Glock, he's ran this race before in the past, and going to be one to keep your eye on for GT Le Mans. That's the only name I really got from that entire side of things.
There's a couple more. There's
number
a couple
25.
more.
If you want
the
to,
Corvette
but
entries. The Jordan Taylor, of course, won at GTLM last year. He's been looking at NASCAR stuff. And then in the 4, Alexander Sims from Formula E. So the Corvettes are going to be the ones to watch. They finished first and second in the qualifying race. Funny enough, the number 4 of Sims actually beat out Taylor's number 3 entry in the qualifying race. We'll see how it goes in the actual race, but Canadian as well on that number 25 BMW with Timo Glock as well, Bruno Spangler, former DTM winner as well. So not a ton of teams to watch in DTLM, a little bit of a disappointing entry list there. But I think there's probably 3 teams or so to watch for that one.
Yeah, I guess so. Corvette is usually pretty good in these races, so yeah. I imagine that they'll be the team to beat. BMW, Ferrari, and Porsche.
Yeah.
Exactly. But we did see some mistakes out of the Chevrolets last year. Yeah. They wrecked a couple of times.
BMW won last year. So
exactly. It was that was the big one that I mentioned earlier. BMW and Porsche out to the end, fighting for it, and BMW came out on top on that one. But moving to the final series of vehicles.
Yes.
Probably the most competitive one. DPI could maybe rival that this year with the entry list that we've got.
DPI, the overall is always the main one to watch, but GTD, man, they got some sneaky competitiveness there, and there's a lot of really fun names in this group.
Exactly. And that starts with Zach Veach for Vassar Sullivan in the Lexus powered car. Townsend Bell also for that same team for Vassar Sullivan for the Lexus. Jack Hawksworth. If you don't know who Jack Hawksworth was, he was kind of like that,
road course ringer, baby.
Road course ringer, but he was kind of like the buddy to Kyle Busch last year in his entry for the Rolex 24. So that's where that name pops up for that side of things. He's going to be racing for Vassar Sullivan in the Lexus entry as well. But they've got a couple of entries. They've got 2 entries. So that Hawksworth is on the other one, but then the Veach and Townsend Bell are on the number 12. Yeah. And then Hawksworth is with the 14. And then we've got J.R. Hildebrand. If you don't remember J.R. Hildebrand, just remember him blowing the Indy 500 in the last corner. Just heartbreaking
the most
for the guy.
Heartbreaking finish to a race I've seen in my entire life.
But at the same time, the winner.
Retrospectively, I'm extremely glad. Yeah. But I still hope at some point Hildebrand wins an Indy 500.
Yeah, you just feel you wish there could have been 2 winners for that one. The real winner, Dan Weldon. Rest in peace. And obviously J.R. Hildebrand, just that one that got away for sure. He's going to be with NTE Sport in the Acura. Andy Lally is going to be over here. We mentioned him earlier on in the show. He's going to be racing with Magnus with Archangel in the Acura. Ed Jones for Scuderia Corsa for Ferrari. You can infer Scuderia, Ferrari, obviously. Ryan Briscoe, the big one down here in GT Daytona. This guy is really good. And he was racing for Wayne Taylor last year, and one of probably my favorite endurance racers across the board, having the huge demotion, I guess, in some respect in terms of the speed and the class.
Just a different competition.
But he's trying some things out this year. He's going to be racing for
pretty sure he's doing Corsa this year as well. So
yeah, he's going to be doing for the Ferrari entry. So that's an interesting one as well. The Ferrari has been a little bit on the downer side of the Rolex 24 in the past. So see if Ryan Briscoe can maybe elevate that program. Earl Bamber for Team Hardpoint for Porsche. And then Colton Herta. He was not on the entry list, but he was announced kind of late in the going here. He's racing for Turner Motorsport for the BMW, but he's very, very good on these side of things as well. He's good on IndyCar. He's basically good at probably anything he does, Colton Herta. So
it's almost like he's talented.
You may think so. It may be something to that. They should sign him to a ride or something. But very, very star-studded list here for GT Daytona. What do you make of the big drivers that I announced, or if there's any I missed that you're keeping your eye on?
Yeah, this is a very, very fun class. So in terms of the order of what I'm watching, I'm probably going to order it DPI number 1, of course, because it's the overall victory. There's the biggest names there. It's the biggest win because you're winning the overall thing. But GTD is a close second because of how many entries there are, how many competitive entries there are, and how many fun names there are. Like you mentioned, names like Zach Veach, Jack Hawksworth, and Townsend Bell all running with the, no clue what happened to my voice there. Oh my God. With the Vassar Sullivan Lex, I have no clue what happened there. I'm going to be straight up. I just breathed in and all of a sudden my voice changed. But anyways, Anyways,
Oh,
you
God.
like your Andy Lalleys, of course, but the big one, that 63. I'm trying to keep it together here. The 63 of Ryan Briscoe, Ed Jones, that's huge. Like they finished 7th overall in the qualifying race. Not fantastic, but not bad either. But Ryan Briscoe won the overall victory last year, and he's down here in GTD with the Ferrari with another competitive guy in Ed Jones there. That's a fun team to keep an eye on. But the one that I'm cheering for most here in GTD, and maybe the most overall, is the 88 Team Hardpoint Porsche with Earl Bamber, who we saw make a cameo in the 21 Xfinity RCR entry last year. But they also got a couple other entries, names on that list. And Catherine Legg and Christina Nielsen. They were on an all-female team last year. Had some unfortunate luck with a fire breaking out on that car as the race went along. Hopefully they have better luck this year. Not the all-female entry this year, but 2 very, very competitive women in motorsport that'll be running with Earl Bamber, who's been extremely successful in these GT classes before. So a very fun entry there. But I think the one probably to beat is the 96 Turner Motorsport. They finished 1st in the qualifying race, and that was without Colton Herta even running in the car. So that's going to be the team to beat, I think. They've got the BMW power there. Colton Herta, BMW driver, they put him over with the Turner Motorsport entry in GTD. And he's probably the most talented guy in that entire class, probably right there, probably behind Ryan Briscoe, just because Briscoe's always doing the sports car stuff. But Colton Herta, he is nobody to overlook here, and they've got the fastest car from qualifying race, and GTD overall is going to be very fun to watch.
For sure. I can't wait for this class. It's always a
banger.
Showstopper, and I don't think that's going to be any different this year. They've got really great drivers down here that could be at a higher level, but they've just found a ride down here, and they're going to give us a show no matter what here for the Rolex 24. So that's kind of all of the classes done. Obviously, like you mentioned there, Catherine Legg and Christina Nielsen, they're the women entries for this one. Very happy to see some women represented in this race. They're going to be ones to watch for sure. And then we've got to give our shout out to the Canadians in this race, of course. Yes. Garrett Grist, as we mentioned a little bit earlier, racing for Dragon Speed for the Orica. Devlin DeFrancesco, as Kyle mentioned earlier as well, for Dragon Speed and Orica. John Ferrano, Tower Motorsports, Orica. Cameron Castles for Performance Tech Motorsports, Ligier. Then Bruno Spengler, as Kyle said earlier as well, Team RLL for the BMW entry. Zachary Robichon, if I'm saying that correctly, Play Motorsports for the Porsche. Ryan DeAngelis for the Heart of Racing team. Very interesting name there for the Aston Martin.
Love that name.
Daniel Morad in the Allegra Motorsports Mercedes, and Mikel Grenier for Sun Energy One Mercedes. That's the Canadians in the Rolex 24 for this one. So we got to give them their shout out in this one.
Absolutely.
Those are the Canadian entries. I don't know if there's anything else to really preview in terms of this one. Kyle, we've talked about all the names,
I think we
talked about all the drivers.
Just jump into our predictions here.
Might as well. Let's
go back to front.
Back to front. Okay, so we'll go with GTG, correct? The Daytona class? Yes. All right. Do you want to go first or should I?
Sure, I'll go first for this one. Okay. GTD, it's an extremely, extremely competitive entry list. It's got the most entries, I do believe, as well.
Yes.
There's some really fun names here. So where am I going to go for this one? There's a lot of different names I'm looking at here, but how do you overlook Ryan Briscoe, right? You got to go with Ryan Briscoe. So I'm going to take the 63 Scuderia Corsa Ferrari. Maybe not the best entry to go with in terms of past results with the Ferraris last year. But when I look at Ryan Briscoe on that team, you've got Ed Jones as well on that team. It's an extremely competitive driver lineup there, arguably the most talented in the entire GTD class. So I'm going to take a bit of a swing there and go with the Ferrari.
I'm going with Wright Motorsports' Porsche entry for this one.
Okay.
Porsche's going to get some redemption, I think, this year over BMW after that kind of close battle that they had last year. I just don't think Ferrari on this level is going to be quite there yet. Ryan Briscoe could definitely prove me wrong and compensate for that kind of loss that they have in performance compared to the other manufacturers. But I like Porsche this year. I don't know what it is. Qualified first of the GTD class, as well. So they have some speed coming out of the gates here. Maybe not the most star-studded lineup in the world, but if they can get some consistency along the stints, and if they have the speed in that Porsche, they looked really strong last year. I think that they could be one to watch this year. So I'm going with Wright Motorsports, number 16 entry for.
It's a very strong pick
for that one. GTLM. Let's move on to that one. I can take this one here, Kyle.
Okay.
The number 25 entry for BMW Team RLL is my pick to win this class. They just seem like they have it all kind of put together for this one. The 24 entry here, the 25 entry. They've got Timo Glock. That's basically the only reason I picked this team. And
Bruno Spengler.
But Timo Glock is the big one for me. But Bruno Spengler, of course, we've got the Canadian in there. We've got the German, the Canadian. It's got everything I need in it, and it's totally biased in this one. I don't know if they're going to actually do it, but I'll go with the 25 for the winning the GTLM class.
I like it. I'm looking here at the Corvettes. I'm going to take one of the Corvettes. I don't know which one to go with, though. I'm not going to lie, because I'm looking here, and both of these lineups look so good to me. You've got the number 3 Corvette of Casper, Garcia, and Taylor. They all ran together last year, so they got the familiarity there. The other lineup, though, with Sims has been faster. But I'm not going to bet against Jordan Taylor. I'm going to take the number 3 Corvette to take the GTLM class. Jordan Taylor's fantastic. I'm hoping he gets a NASCAR opportunity here soon. I was hoping that he would get some of the road courses for Junior Motorsports and Xfinity. Didn't end up being that case. But the Corvettes have been 1-2 in the qualifying race. I'll take them throughout the race, and I'll take the number 3 entry for them.
All right. What do you got for the LMP3 class, the new one for the Rolex 24?
LMP3 is a weird one because I have no clue what's going to happen here. I feel like this class is going to be wild all over the place. We might see some attrition in this one. I don't know what to expect for this one. So I'm just going to go with the lineup that I think probably is the best all around, and that's the 74 Riley Motorsports. We didn't see them in the qualifying race, so we don't know what they got in terms of race pace or anything like that. But Oliver Askew and Spencer Piggott. I know Colin Braun's over there in the 54, but I'll take the 74 Riley Motorsports for LMP3.
I'm going with the 38 for Performance Tech Motorsports for this one. I don't really have a rationale behind it. It's got a Canadian in it as well. I don't know. It's not names that I'm not really familiar with, but I don't know. They looked pretty sporty in the practice times and the qualifying speeds as well. They actually were, I think, 3rd in the LMP3 class. 1, 2, 3. Yep, 3rd. So they qualified 3rd for this one, and they seem like they have some speed. I don't know. I didn't want to go with the first place guys for all of them because I feel like that's just definitely not going to happen. There's some guys that are just going to beat you on consistency. So I thought 3rd was a nice landing spot for it. I was going to go with maybe Colin Braun just for that name factor, but I went against it. So I went with the 38 entry with the Performance Tech Ligier for LMP3. So we'll see who wins the inaugural LMP3 class for the Rolex 24. We're into the 2 big ones here, Kyle.
Yes,
LMP2
we are.
and the overall, of course, the DPI. Okay, for LMP2, I'm going with Cedelar Racing, the Dallara, the number 47 entry, Roberto Lacorte, Antonio Fuoco, and Andrea Bellici, if I'm saying that correctly. And then, oh God, this is going to be...
You made a mistake here.
Georgia Semigiotto. I'm sure that's how you say
Italians.
that. Yeah, the Italians. I went with this one. Antonio Fuoco. I think this kid is pretty solid, and I think he'll put it in a shift. And then Roberto Lacorte, I think he could be one to keep your eye on as well in this one. Did pretty well. I think he qualified the car as well. Yes, he did. And Antonio Fuoco did. So they did pretty solid there for LMP2. Qualified 3rd again. So I'm going with the 3rd place guys. I think maybe that's a sign for something down the road? Question mark. I don't know. But yeah, I'm going with the 47 entry here for Cedelar Racing.
I like that pick. I want to go with the Dragon Speed, but I feel like picking them to go back-to-back is maybe a little bit risky here.
Rick Ware. You won't.
I'm not doing the Rick Ware. I'm not, no. I'm really thinking about the 81 there. I like VK and Hanley and Canadian Garrett Griston there as well. But you know what? I'm going to make the homer pick. I'm going to take the 20 with Robert Kubica, the high-class racing entry. They got a couple of Danes in there. I got a soft spot, Freddie Anderson.
All right.
Robert Kubica, though. Robert Kubica, I'm a big fan of him. They were 2nd in the qualifying race, so they do have some legitimate speed as well. I think the Dragon Speeds are going to be the team to beat, but back-to-back is tough to do, so I'm going to take the 20. I'm going to say Robert Kubica comes over here, and he gets the LMP2 victory in his maiden Rolex 24 with high-class racing.
I like that pick a lot. I do like that pick. Robert Kubica is a pretty good bet.
Which means
we're into the overall. Who's going to win
overall.
the Rolex 24
do you
of
have a
2021
pick already?
Yes, I have mine locked in.
Because I got two that I'm debating between.
I thought you said you had this before the show. I thought you said you had
that I had them all except for one. So
okay, all right. Kyle is not locked and loaded for this one.
I'm hoping you pick one of the two so I can just split the difference and take the other one. But
all right, the Rolex 24 winner. You heard it here first. This is who's going to win the Rolex 24. It's the number 10. I'm going to go with the number 10. Konica Minolta Acura. The number 10. Ricky Taylor, Felipe Albuquerque, Alexander Rossi, and Helio Castroneves. Those guys are out for redemption this year after the disappointing Rolex 24 they had last year. Good, solid qualifying as well. I think it's fourth, so not too bad. They're going to be right up there. They have, I think, all the tools necessary to be a well-rounded team. They're going to have speed when they need speed as the night goes on. And I think just they have the perfect consistency of the four drivers. I think that's what really got me. If Chip Ganassi had four, I probably would have go with the Chip Ganassi entry. But for that sake of having only three, I went with the four driver stable with a bit more, rest and consistency maybe as the night goes on. I went with that. Yeah, redemption is basically the name of the game for this team this year. And I think they're out to prove something without the Wayne Taylor Racing kind of slogan around them. Obviously, a new manufacturer underneath the hood of that thing as well. I think it could be a recipe for disaster for the competition. So I'm going to go with the number 10.
I really like that pick. Okay, when I'm looking at things here, my initial reaction when I started seeing the entry list come out was I'm riding Kamui Kobayashi no matter what. But when I look at these other lineups, I like these other lineups more. Kamui is the best sports car driver in the world, in my opinion. But I feel like the rest of his lineup might be lesser than some of the others. And so Kobayashi's excellence might not make up for some of the lacking in some of the other areas. And that's not to say Johnson, Pagenaud, Rockefeller are bad. I just think that there are some other lineups that are rock solid all throughout. And especially with Jimmy Johnson there, I really don't know what the performance level is going to be like, especially compared to somebody like Kamui Kobayashi or for other teams like Felipe Albuquerque or anybody else like that with the Ganassi, Renger van der Zande, with Pippo Durrani. I don't know what the competition level is going to be like for the 48. So I'm not going to take the 48 to win it. I'm going to toss up here between the 01 and the 31. I'm just going to be straight up because I'm looking at the 01 and I'm like, God, how do you bet against Scott Dixon, Kevin Magnussen, and Renger van der Zande? But then I look at the 31 and I'm like, okay, well, how do you bet against Durrani, Conway, Nasser, and you're tossing to Chase Elliott there. So I'm going to take the swing on the pole sitters, the 31, Wheeling Engineering, Mike Conway, Pippo Durrani, Felipe Nasser, and Chase Elliott. Look, when I'm looking at this lineup, you got three extremely, extremely good sports car drivers. And that's something that not a lot of these other lineups can say. They've got one or two really strong sports car drivers, but then the rest is kind of pulling from other areas, whereas Nasser, Durrani, and Conway are all embedded in sports cars, and you're adding somebody in Chase Elliott who, by all accounts, is fit in very nicely there. And I'm making the bold pick there because Chase Elliott could be a step down from the rest of those guys and could maybe be the downfall of the team as it goes for the 24 hours, and a team that's more solid all around, like a Ganassi 01 with Dixon, Magnussen, and Van der Zande might come through, even though they don't have that fourth guy there. But I'm going to take the swing. I think it's going to be a fantastic, fantastic race because I think that there's 4, maybe even 5 entries here that have legitimate shots at winning this race. And if we know anything about these races, there's always funky stuff that happens over the course of 24 hours. And whether that's attrition, wrecks, or anything else, penalties, we always know there's going to be some kind of fireworks, and I can't wait to see how this plays out.
This race does not end with any hours left to go. It comes down to minutes at the end of it.
Yep.
And I'm anticipating something pretty close down the line here. I think within a couple of seconds is going to be the finish of the Rolex 24 with that DPI class for sure. It's crazy to think 24 hours of racing and it all comes down to a couple of seconds by the end of it. It just really blows your mind how equal it just comes down to one break here, one break there, and maybe you're in victory lane there in the iconic Daytona victory lane. So that does it for the Rolex 24 preview. Very thorough.
Yes.
Did your homework, Kyle. Very well done. We got not too bad. Not too bad. We got a lot done in this episode, covered everything in terms of the news coming into the speed weeks here as it comes along. And then we get kicked off, with the big Rolex 24 to really kick off the motorsport season. I know the Chili Bowl happened, but this is the big one, Rolex 24. It's when it all kicks off. So we got some big names to keep your eye on. We'll be definitely talking about this on the next episode of the Green Flag. But you got any final thoughts before we wrap up, Kyle?
Just very excited to watch this race coming up this weekend. I'm going to be busy on the early part and the late part of the race, so I don't know if I'll be able to catch the beginning and the end necessarily. But if it's close ending, so if I can hold on a second. If it's a close finish, I'll definitely accidentally have it up on a second screen somewhere while I'm on air. But I can't wait for the middle parts of those races. The overnight as well as always has some dramatics. And just mainly to see how do some of those new guys stack up against some of the guys that have been there, done that. The likes of Kevin Magnussen stepping into sports cars for the first time in a while, coming over from F1. How does he compare to Scott Dixon and Renger van der Zande? How does Chase Elliott compare to some of his teammates? How does Jimmy Johnson compare to his teammates? How does Austin Dillon look in an LMP2 car, for crying out loud? So there's a lot of really fun names to watch. There's a lot of really exciting competition coming up. I highly, highly recommend tuning in at some point. It's a 24-hour race, so there's going to be time for you to catch it at some point. Highly recommend checking out the Daytona 24 hours, the Rolex 24, whatever you want to call it, sometime this weekend, because it's one of the premier racing events of the year. Yeah,
this is definitely one that hangs in the trophy case. It's something that goes on your mantle. It is bragging rights for the rest of your life, winning at Daytona for the Rolex 24. It's definitely a good one. So make sure to go follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag, at The Green Flag Pod on Twitter. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Leave a like on this video if you enjoyed it. All the links to our social channels will be in the description. Fun one, very fun one. We'll be back on Monday's episode, going into the Tuesday. We'll review the Rolex 24, and we also have our previews for the upcoming NASCAR season. The Truck Series and Xfinity Series is on deck. It's going to be right around the corner here, just a week and a half away from Speed Weeks really kicking off here. But this is the big one. Wishing you all the best as the Rolex 24 goes along. For this episode, I've been Lukas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you on Tuesday to recap the Rolex 24. Enjoy the racing, everybody.